I find solace in the understanding I share with my daughter-in-law. Following my husband's funeral, my mother-in-law, blissfully ignorant, bid me farewell with a radiant smile as she drove me away. However, the next day, panic painted her face when she visited my parents' house where I sought refuge. It was clear her scheme to secure my husband's inheritance had hit a snag. In that moment, the true gravity of ignorance struck me. My name is Emily. I'm 39, married to John, who is 2 years my junior. We have a daughter, Rose, in first grade. Living with my mother-in-law began a year ago after my father-in-law's passing. Concerned about her solitude in their spacious home, I agreed to the cohabitation. Initially, we split living expenses, offering some relief. Yet, unexpected challenges emerged as my mother-in-law started criticizing me for sharing household chores with my husband. She disapproved, asserting that it was unfit for the head of the family to engage in such tasks. Despite my role as the primary breadwinner due to a 2-year age gap with my husband, my mother-in-law remained oblivious to this fact. Frustrated, I pleaded with my husband to enlighten her about our financial dynamics, hoping to resume our shared responsibilities. However, he hesitated, revealing his reluctance to take on additional chores. Disappointed, I realized a new facet of my husband's character. Eventually, labeled a failure as a wife, I found myself shouldering all household duties alone, while my mother-in-law, a full-time housewife, remained oblivious to the imbalance. It's almost comical that she isn't fulfilling her role as a housewife, considering she should be sharing the household chores. With my husband now liberated from domestic duties, he started venturing out alone on his days off, donning casual attire despite claiming to be at work. Skepticism gnawed at me, questioning the authenticity of his purported work engagements. Moreover, on weekends, he began frequently checking his smartphone, leaving me curious about what captivated his attention. Despite my interest, he guarded his phone closely, leaving no opportunity for me to investigate. His supposed overtime hours were also inconsistent. He often returned home around the usual time or just an hour later. While suspicions of infidelity lingered, observing his routine on weekdays made me question the validity of such thoughts. A few months later, anomalies in my husband's behavior became more apparent. He had been consistent in contributing his share of living expenses, but now, instead of the customary $670, he was depositing only $600 or sometimes even $540. Perplexed, I confronted him about the financial shortfall, emphasizing my strict principles regarding money matters. With many years of marriage behind us, I expected a straightforward explanation. He nonchalantly attributed it to the company's poor performance, claiming a temporary reduction in his salary, making it challenging to meet the usual contribution. Doubtful, I pressed further, questioning whether financial cutbacks were a guise for unfaithfulness. Surprised, he vehemently denied any such betrayal, citing the presence of our family as a deterrent. While his response seemed sincere, the mystery of his weekend escapades lingered. Frustrated by the lack of clarity, I contemplated hiring a detective agency to unveil the truth. However, before I could take that step, a significant event unfolded a few days later during his work. A call from an unfamiliar number shattered the tranquility of my day. It turned out to be my husband's boss. The voice on the other end, the embodiment of concern, disclosed a distressing truth. John, my husband, had been in a traffic accident during a business errand and his life hung in the balance. The gravity of those words plunged my mind into chaos. The notion of danger to his life left me momentarily paralyzed, but soon reality snapped back. I promptly informed my boss, set aside any ongoing tasks, and rushed to the hospital, fervently wishing for his survival. Upon reaching the hospital, the devastating news awaited me. My husband had succumbed to the impact of a car collision while waiting for a green light at an intersection. Attempting to evade another vehicle that ran a red light, he stood no chance against the force of the collision. His instant demise left me grappling with an overwhelming torrent of responsibilities. Last year, I had experienced the rituals of wake and funeral preparations with the passing of my father-in-law. But then, I had my husband by my side. Now, I faced the daunting task alone. My grief-stricken mother-in-law, lost in a daze, proved incapable of offering assistance. She occasionally wandered away, seemingly seeking solace in places steeped in memories of my husband. The shock of losing both husband and son in rapid succession left her incapacitated. In the face of this tragedy, I resolved to be strong. I had to not only navigate the funeral arrangements but also prepare my daughter Rose for a future without her father. Breaking the news to Rose was an agonizing task. I explained that her father had been involved in a fatal car accident, leaving only the two of us to face the world together. Despite the uncertainty of her understanding, I felt compelled to share this harsh reality with her. As we progressed through the wake, the day of the funeral arrived, ushering in a new wave of emotions. The tension mounted, and I found myself unable to contain the flood of tears. My mother-in-law, seemingly concerned about my emotional state, approached me and uttered something utterly unbelievable. In the midst of my mourning, she callously suggested that since there was no blood relation, I should refrain from claiming John's inheritance and simply depart, leaving Rose behind. She even went so far as to question Rose's worth as my daughter, proposing that I take her when I leave. Her laughter accompanying these heartless words added an extra layer of shock. Struggling to comprehend such cruelty amid my grief, I decided to maintain composure until the funeral concluded and distance myself from my mother-in-law's callous remarks. Her smirking face lingered in my memory, fueling a desire for some form of retribution. Post-funeral, I meticulously prepared to depart, packing only the essentials for Rose and me. I approached my mother-in-law and declared my renouncement of any claim to John's inheritance, offering it to her without hesitation. Her face lit up with joy at the prospect, expressing relief and gratitude for my supposed understanding. She eagerly agreed, seemingly content with the arrangement, and happily retreated to her room, signaling the end of our association. As we left the house, I couldn't fathom the newfound happiness she exuded. Despite our initial decision to live together due to her loneliness, she now appeared content with our departure. The reasons for her joy remained elusive to me. Upon reaching my parents' house, I recounted the entire ordeal to my father, who was understandably outraged. He condemned my mother-in-law's actions, deeming her concern for inheritance immediately after John's death despicable. Concerned about our financial stability without the inheritance, my father pondered our future. However, I assured him that we would manage without it, having handled expenses on my salary alone for the past month or two. Expressing his concern for Rose's future and the importance of saving, my father generously offered us a place to live. Grateful, I accepted his kindness. Regarding my husband's inheritance, I revealed a document to my father that had recently arrived from my in-law's house. A report titled John's Conduct Investigation. It contained shocking revelations about my husband's true nature. As I spent time at my parents' house on John's bereavement leave, contemplating our next steps, the doorbell incessantly rang. Irritated by the persistent ringing, I opened the door to find my mother-in-law looking pale and agitated. Confused by her sudden change in demeanor, I responded through the intercom, urging her to stop shouting. Her outburst about my knowledge of John's substantial debt disturbed the neighbors. Reluctantly, she acquiesced to a quieter conversation, but her unexpected visit begged the question. What did she want after proclaiming just the day before that we should no longer be in contact? I responded with cold detachment, stating that it concerned John's inheritance and suggested continuing the conversation inside. However, my mother intervened, adamantly refusing entry to someone who had callously told my grieving daughter to leave during a funeral. Concerned about shielding Rose from the discussion, I concurred with my mother's decision. Unyielding, my mother-in-law insisted on finding an alternative, leading us to agree to talk at a nearby cafe. Once at the restaurant, my mother-in-law wasted no time delving into the discussion. She accused me of leaving the house easily because I knew John was drowning in debt. I confirmed her suspicion, citing John's weekend work claims, perpetual smartphone proximity, and his sudden halt in contributing to living expenses as red flags. To clarify, I hired a detective agency that revealed his gambling addiction and mounting debts, information I learned just 2 days prior. Addressing her concern about my tears at the funeral, I admitted genuine sorrow for the loss but acknowledged that, considering everything, leaving was the right decision. Intrigued, she questioned the total amount of John's debt. Startled, I revealed a demand letter I received that day, a staggering $6,700, contributing to a grand total of $33,700 in debt. I warned her that unless she renounced the inheritance, she'd be burdened with the entire sum. Dismayed by the revelation, my mother-in-law stuttered, confessing that the inheritance from her husband was already spent, $13,000, $500 on luxury items, anticipating John's inheritance. This expenditure explained her post-funeral shopping sprees. Realizing her financial recklessness, I acknowledged my inability to assist with her debt and urged her to handle the renunciation herself. I left, and in subsequent events, she managed to renounce John's negative inheritance, but the $13,500 debt remained. Attempts to seek help from relatives failed due to the rumors of her actions on the day of the funeral. In contrast, life for Rose and me took a positive turn. Despite Rose transferring schools, she embraced her new environment energetically. Living with my parents allowed me to focus on work, providing a stable income. We now spend quality weekends together, exploring shopping malls, visiting theme parks, and enjoying activities we couldn't during John's lifetime. Supported by my loving parents, our days are filled with smiles, and I am determined to sustain this newfound happiness. "Go away," said my mother-in-law, Catherine, in a very unfriendly way. When my husband got a job overseas, Catherine decided I couldn't stay in the house anymore, so my daughter and I had to leave. We didn't have anywhere else to go, so I went to the park, holding my 2-year-old daughter, feeling confused and lost about what to do next. Suddenly, police officers surrounded me. "Please come to the station," one of the officers said. It was raining heavily, and I was cold and shaking. I followed the officer to the police station. When I got there, someone unexpected was waiting for me. "My name's Emma, and I'm going to be 35 this year. I met my husband Bob at work, and after a year of dating, we got married. When we got married, I stopped working, and 2 years ago, our daughter Lily was born. Right now, I live with Bob, Lily, and my mother-in-law, Catherine. We used to rent a place, but after Catherine's husband passed away and she started having trouble with her knees, we decided to all live together and bought a new apartment. We thought about buying a house, but because Catherine's knees aren't so good, we figured it'd be better to live somewhere near public transportation. Buying an apartment was cheaper than a house back then, and it has an elevator, which makes things easier for us. Catherine also liked the idea of the apartment, so we put some money down and got a loan that will pay off over 35 years. Bob's job often involves traveling or moving to different places, but after we bought the house, we were told he wouldn't have to relocate anytime soon. However, he still travels a lot for work, about once a week to other states. Having a 2-year-old daughter, I feel really stressed when Bob goes away on these trips. At first, Catherine, my mother-in-law, was helpful, but now she doesn't pitch in with taking care of Lily at all. Instead, she makes more work for me. For example, she leaves dirty dishes lying around after eating, and she doesn't even bother to rinse cooking utensils, which makes them really hard to clean later. Even when I ask her to at least rinse them, she just says sorry and promises to do better next time, but she doesn't follow through. I noticed something strange recently. She rinses the dishes when Bob is around, but not when it's just me. At first, I thought it was okay since she sometimes rinsed them, but now I think she's doing it on purpose to make things difficult for me. It's not just about the dishes either. Sometimes she'll ask if I need anything from the store, and when I say no, she'll later say she actually did need something after I've already come back. This happens a lot. Considering Catherine's knee problems, I try my best to help her with moving around, but my willingness to assist has been decreasing over time. Catherine's behavior started not long after we all started living together, and it's been happening for years now. When I talked to a friend about it, she said, "That sounds like she's bullying you. Why don't you talk to Bob? I think he might help." But I worried that if I talked to Bob about it, Catherine, who doesn't have any other family, might end up in a care facility. So I thought it might be best for me to just put up with it. However, one day, something happened that made me reconsider. That day, I was planning to drop Lily off at my parents' house. They always enjoyed having Lily over and suggested I stay the night too. I wanted to, but I felt uneasy about leaving Catherine alone at home. So after a short chat with my parents, I decided to head back to the apartment where Catherine was waiting. When I got there, I realized I had left my keys at home, which left me feeling worried. But then I remembered that Catherine was home, so I decided to ring the intercom to get inside. I pressed the button and waited for her to answer, but there was no response. I wondered if she had gone out, so I waited outside for a while. But even after waiting for about 2 hours, Catherine didn't come back. It was getting dark, and I was getting worried. Just as it was getting dark, another resident returned, and I followed them inside when they unlocked the main entrance. I was sure Catherine was at home because she rarely went out at night. So I pressed the intercom button outside our apartment, but still there was no answer. I waited by the door for a while, and then I heard a faint sound from inside, which meant Catherine was there. I tried the intercom a few more times, but Catherine didn't come out. Feeling defeated, I decided to stay at a nearby motel for the night. I planned to go back home when Bob returned from his business trip. When I told Bob what happened with Catherine locking me out, he was understandably upset. But Catherine just brushed it off, saying she might not have heard me because of her age. I could tell she was smirking though. I was relieved to be back inside and grabbed my keys to pick up Lily from my parents' house. After talking to my parents about what happened, they offered me comfort and told me I could always come back to stay with them if things got too tough. Their words brought tears to my eyes, but I quickly wiped them away before heading home with Lily. For a while, things were okay with Catherine, but then, unexpectedly, Bob's transfer to another country became permanent. He asked me what I thought about it, but I couldn't give him an immediate answer. Considering the potential stress it could cause Lily, I decided it would be best for her and me to stay in the US. Soon after we decided I and Lily would stay in the US while Bob went to Europe, he had to leave. He was worried about us, but he was so busy with work that he didn't have much time to think about it. So it was just me, Lily, and Catherine at home. But as expected, things went downhill with Catherine once Bob left. On a stormy day, when it was unsafe to go outside, Catherine dropped a bombshell on me. She suggested that Lily and I should move out now that Bob was gone. "Excuse me, what do you mean?" I asked, shocked. "Just what I said. I think it would be better if you and Lily found somewhere else to live. I'll take care of things here. I just don't feel comfortable with strangers in the house. It would be best if you left right away," Catherine said. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I've always tried to make living together with Catherine as good as possible. I've treated her like family even though we're not related. But to Catherine, it seemed like Lily and I didn't matter much at all. I was thinking about going back to my parents' house when Catherine suddenly said, "Why don't you just leave already?" Before I knew it, Lily and I were kicked out of our own home, just as we were, without even a chance to gather our things. No matter how hard I knocked on the door, Catherine wouldn't let us back in. I felt lost and confused. I carried Lily through the pouring rain to a nearby park. There was a shelter there that I hoped would keep us dry from the rain. Ideally, I would have gone to a motel or gone back to my parents' place. But I had left my wallet and phone inside the house. I felt helpless as I sat in the park, trying to figure out what to do next. I'm not sure how much time passed as the rain poured down. I was exhausted and cold, and I started to doze off. It was dark already, and even though it was summer, the cold was harsh, and I worried that Lily and I might get sick. As bad as things were, it seemed like the only option was to walk to my parents' house, even though it would take about 3 hours. As I was thinking about what to do next, I noticed 2 lights coming closer through the rain. They turned out to be police officers. I thought they might be able to help us, but before I could approach them, one of the officers called out to me, "Are you Emma? And is this little one Lily?" I was surprised they knew our names but replied, "Yes, that's us." Then the officer said, "Please come to the station with us." I wondered why they wanted us to go to the police station. If something was wrong, urged by the officer, Lily and I got into the patrol car. We were freezing from being out in the rain for so long, but the officers had brought big towels for us. "You might need these." "We've got some spare clothes for you at the station," they said kindly. Curious about why they knew about us and why we were going to the police station, I asked, "How did you know where to find us?" They replied, "We'll explain everything once we're back at the station. For now, just try to relax." Exhausted, I soon fell asleep and woke up to find we had arrived at the police station. As I followed the officers into the police station, I was surprised to see Catherine and my uncle there. "Uncle, what are you doing here?" I asked. He explained, "Bob got in touch with me. He thought you might be having problems with his mom, and since he's overseas, he asked me to keep an eye on things for him." According to my uncle, Bob had talked to him about this before. He said Bob wanted him to keep an eye on things since he couldn't be there himself. My uncle had seen us in the rain earlier today. He had thought about taking us in himself, but he thought Catherine's behavior was too extreme, so he reported it to the police. That's how the officers knew where to find us. Catherine had also been asked to come to the police station. She sat on a sofa, glaring at me, seeming confused about why she was there. "Why do I have to be here? My knee hurts, you know." "If Bob were here, none of this would be happening," Catherine argued. But the whole situation had come about because Bob had asked my uncle for help. In the discussions with the police, it seemed like there could be legal implications to the events. So I was advised to think about hiring a lawyer. "An attorney? That seems like a big step." "I just locked the door, nothing more," Catherine protested. But my uncle intervened, pointing out that what she did was serious. Throwing me and a little child out in heavy rain isn't something that can be easily forgiven. He also clarified that I was actually the rightful owner of the house. Catherine was surprised, insisting that Bob, as the head of the household, should be the owner. But she was mistaken. My uncle, who works in real estate, had helped us get a great deal on a condo, and Bob had suggested putting it under my name. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now I was grateful I followed Bob's advice. Following my uncle's guidance, I decided to hire a lawyer. The lawyer explained that it would be tough to evict Catherine, so the best option might be to place her in a care facility. I immediately called Bob to update him. He hadn't expected things to escalate like this and said he wanted to come back from Japan to sort it out properly. He also mentioned that he was considering putting Catherine in a facility, unaware of the current situation. Despite being at the police station, Catherine seemed unconcerned as she casually snacked on some crackers. Since I couldn't go back home with her, I decided to stay at my parents' place until Bob returned. He was due back in a week, giving me time to figure out our next steps. If Bob didn't support me, divorce seemed like the only option. I regretted not seeking advice sooner. A week later, Bob returned from Europe and was at the house with Catherine. So I moved back home from my parents' place. Bob had to go back to Europe soon, so we needed to talk about what to do next. I heard some things from Emma's uncle. "Is all of that true?" Bob asked Catherine. "It's all lies. I haven't done anything. Emma's plotting something to evict me." Catherine stubbornly denied any wrongdoing and accused me of scheming against her. Bob, who I thought would support me, seemed to be considering Catherine's side. "I see. So do you have any evidence to prove Emma's plotting something?" Bob asked Catherine. "Evidence? No, of course not," she replied. Then Bob turned to me, asking, "Emma, do you have any evidence?" I hesitated, admitting, "To be honest, I've been so busy with work I haven't been able to keep an eye on things. I'm not sure who to believe." I handed Bob a voice recorder I had with me. "What's this?" he asked. It contained recordings of Catherine's hurtful words and actions, capturing moments when she not only kicked me out but also often insulted me. When Bob played it, he heard Catherine saying awful things like, "You're such a worthless wife. I wonder why he even married you." Catherine quickly tried to defend herself, claiming it was taken out of context and just a one-time thing. But as the recordings played on, it became clear that her verbal abuse was a pattern, not just a one-off incident. Bob's hand trembled with tension and anger as he listened to the recordings. Catherine looked guilty as the truth sank in. "Mom, what is this about?" Bob demanded an explanation, but Catherine stayed silent. "If you won't answer, then I have to believe this is all true. And if it is, I need to protect Emma and Lily. You understand that, right?" Bob's anger was evident, something I hadn't seen in all our years together. Catherine, seeing this side of Bob for the first time, looked frightened and couldn't say a word. After many discussions before Bob's return to Europe, I made it clear that I couldn't continue living with Catherine, especially with Lily around. Bob seemed to agree, leaning towards placing Catherine in a care facility. However, Catherine strongly opposed this, making the discussions complicated. Despite her objections, I decided to sell the house. So you can't stay here anymore. If you don't want to go to the facility, you'll need to find somewhere else to live, Bob told Catherine. She resisted the idea of selling the house, but it was necessary for our plans. Lily and I had decided to move to Europe. Bob regretted not being more present for his family and wanted to be there for us moving forward. Although I was unsure about living abroad, knowing Bob would be with us made me feel better. Plus, it would be good for Lily to experience life in Europe at her young age. Selling the condo, which still had a mortgage, was our only option. If we didn't sell it, Catherine would have to cover the mortgage, which she couldn't afford on her fixed income. Considering her future, it was important for someone to be there to assist her. Despite our efforts, Catherine refused to move into a facility, so we had to forcefully place her there. I'm sorry, but I have to head back to Europe. Could you take care of any procedures needed here? Bob asked before leaving. With help from others, I managed to finalize Catherine's admission into the facility. The staff at the facility kept me updated on Catherine's condition, but it seems she's struggling. It would be one thing if she was just feeling down, but she's been causing trouble for the staff and other residents. Before leaving for Europe, I visited her to check on her. But she lashed out at me, saying, "Why have you locked me up in this place?" She also complained to the staff about the food, the beds, and the other residents. When I apologized to the staff, they were understanding. "It's okay," one of them reassured me. "We're used to this kind of behavior. Just leave it to us. We'll keep you updated, and if anything happens, we'll let you know. So don't worry." Despite all the harassment I endured from Catherine when we lived together, I couldn't help but feel worried as I headed to Europe. Upon arriving in Paris, Bob met me at the airport and we went to the apartment we had rented. They say rents in Paris are higher than in Texas. But since Bob's company gives him a housing allowance, we were lucky to find a spacious and affordable place. The neighbors in our building are very friendly and have been kind to me, even though I don't speak French fluently. Just yesterday, a neighbor shared some wine and cheese with me. In return, I gave them some mac and cheese. I'm gradually learning French along with my daughter, Lily. I know there's a limit to self-study, so I've also enrolled in a language school. There are many Americans there, many of whom, like me, are new to France. I've made some friends and am really enjoying my life in Paris. Back in the States, I always had to worry about Catherine, which often prevented me from fully enjoying outings with friends. But here, I can indulge in leisurely lunches just the way I like. The only concern right now is Lily. She's still too young for kindergarten, as kids here usually start the year they turn 5. I hope she picks up enough French by then. Fortunately, Lily seems to be catching on pretty quickly. I'm thinking of getting a job once Lily starts preschool. Bob says he's okay with me staying at home, but living in Paris has made me want to explore more opportunities. Seeing how ambitious and confident people are here has ignited something within me. I've become friends with a waitress at a nearby cafe, and she hinted that there might be a job opportunity for me there. The cafe is popular not only among the American community, but also with many locals who are learning English. There might be challenges ahead, but since coming to France, Bob and I have been communicating much better. I feel more confident in expressing my feelings, and I believe that no matter what happens, we'll face it as a family. Right now, I feel happier than I've ever been in my life. "Why won't you talk to me?" I asked. "I've decided not to talk to people I don't know." "I understand. I'll go away." Living with my husband's parents, they completely ignored me. I thought my mother-in-law might ignore me, but I never expected my father-in-law to treat me the same way. There was a reason why they changed. It was because my sister-in-law, who didn't like me, came back home. Since she returned, our peaceful life together turned upside down. "Don't regret it, okay? You think I'll regret leaving? Think again, meanie." I packed my things and left my in-laws' house. Just 3 days after I left, there was chaos in their home. I met my husband at work. He worked in sales and often came to my office, and I was his main contact. As we spent more time together in meetings, I started to like him. He was caring and kind, tall, and not exactly what you'd call handsome, but he had a charming personality. He was well liked, but for some reason, he said he liked me. and we started dating. When we talked, he told me he grew up in a normal family with parents and a sister. I lost my parents when I was young and grew up in an orphanage. It was a hard thing for me, but when we started dating, I told him about my past. He said, "That sounds tough, but don't worry, I'll always be here for you." Not long after, he asked me to marry him. He always wanted our relationship to lead to marriage and quickly introduced me to his parents. When I told them about growing up in the orphanage, they listened carefully and reassured me it wouldn't affect our marriage. It made me really happy. They even said that my background didn't matter in becoming their daughter-in-law, which made me feel really good. But my sister-in-law, who was very close to her brother, seemed surprised, asking, "You grew up in an orphanage?" My husband had to scold her. Looking back, she probably didn't like me from the start. I didn't think much of it then, just assuming we were still getting to know each other. Before we got married, my husband and I talked about moving in with his parents. We thought about it seriously, but I decided to keep my job. My husband was going to be transferred soon, and although I considered quitting to move with him, my career was going well, and I had just been given more responsibilities at work. We discussed it and agreed he would move alone. After our wedding, I wanted to enjoy being newlyweds for a while. I even thought about visiting my husband during long weekends to have a May vacation together. Moving in with my in-laws right after getting married seemed a bit overwhelming, but my husband probably felt more comfortable living with them. Also, he might have wanted us to live together to ease his mom's worries. Since I lost my parents when I was young, I always wished for a family, so living with them didn't seem entirely bad. Besides, my in-laws had always been nice to me, and I grew to like them. It was tough juggling work and my role as a daughter-in-law, but having a family made me happy and complete. One day, my father-in-law came to me with a surprising request. It was the beginning of some trouble in our seemingly happy living arrangement. It happened when my usually anxious mother-in-law, who often acted bossy towards my father-in-law, was out shopping. I was getting ready to do some cleaning on my day off when my father-in-law asked to talk to me. "What's up?" "Well, I don't want my wife to find out, but I need to take time off from work." "Time off?" I asked, surprised. He explained that he'd been having problems with his boss and coworkers, and his health had gotten so bad that he had no choice but to take a break. My mother-in-law is a nice person, but she's always anxious and a bit overworried. Living with them, I notice how she tends to fret a lot, and my father-in-law walked on eggshells around her to avoid upsetting her. He had always been on the thin side, but lately I realized he seemed to have lost some weight. It would have been nice if my mother-in-law genuinely cared about my father-in-law's weight loss. But when he took a sick day because of a cold before, she said, "A cold? Everyone else at work is climbing the career ladder. You're always taking days off for health reasons. That's why you're not getting promoted." Instead of being concerned, she tended to criticize him. He probably tried his best to keep going, no matter how bad he felt. But his health got worse, and he secretly took time off to go to the hospital. He was struggling both mentally and physically. With him leaving work early, often being late, and calling in sick, there was talk about him needing to take a break from work. But he didn't want to upset my mother-in-law at any cost. If he suggested taking time off, she'd likely get really angry. Also, my father-in-law didn't earn much, and he relied on extra pay from working overtime. Taking time off would mean a significant drop in income. If he told my husband, he might tell my mother-in-law, so he came to me, asking if I could help with the bills. If I mentioned taking a break, she might even leave me, he said. Hearing that hurt, I was grateful to my in-laws who had accepted me warmly, regardless of my past in an orphanage. Wanting to support him, I decided to help him out during this tough time. "Okay, I'll send you money every month. Use it for expenses." "I'm really sorry. I'll try to get better soon and go back to work. Thank you so much." After that, my father-in-law continued to pretend to go to work while I sent money to his bank account for living expenses. My mother-in-law wasn't very thorough with checking her bank statements, so she didn't notice my transfers. He'd act like he was going to work but instead went to a mental health clinic or went for walks in the peaceful mountains. Over time, he started looking better. I thought he might go back to work soon, but then something unexpected happened. After a fight with her husband, my sister-in-law went back to her parents' home. There's nothing like being back home. I thought I'd lose my mind if I stayed with that stupid husband of mine. I'll be here for a while. Can you make meals for me too? I knew from the start that my sister-in-law didn't like me. At our first family meeting, my husband was upset because she clearly showed her disapproval. During our wedding, she had a sour look the whole time and even told me straight out, "My brother looks great, but you. He could have married someone prettier." She openly judged me for being raised in an institution, saying it was embarrassing that I didn't have parents at the wedding. However, she got married before us and had already moved out, so I thought I wouldn't have to deal with her much. That's why I thought it would be okay to live with them. If she had still been living at home, I wouldn't have even considered moving in, knowing how she would treat me every day. I thought her stay was just temporary because of her marriage problems and expected her to leave in a few days. Even though she was stern with my father-in-law, my mother-in-law had never been harsh towards me. Even if my sister-in-law made mean comments, I believed my mother-in-law would defend me. But I was wrong. One day, when I came back from work, my mother-in-law's behavior seemed strange. "Is something bothering you?" I asked. She seemed distant, not talking to me like usual. When I asked her what was wrong, she said, "Did you know you've been talking about me behind my back?" "What? I've never said anything bad about you. You've always been kind to me, and I'm really thankful. Why would I say bad things about you? You've been acting like the perfect daughter-in-law, but you've been talking behind my back." "Whatever," she said, leaving the room. In the hallway, my sister-in-law was smirking. "Looks like you're not in her good books anymore. Did your true colors come out? Being from an orphanage, your background really does matter, huh? It's best not to gossip about people, you know." I haven't said anything bad about her. Oh, the neighbors seem to have heard everything. When I came back home after so long, they told me you've been talking badly about her all the time. What? Who are these neighbors? Well, it's been a while since I got married and moved out, so I kind of forgot their names. I never said any of that. Stop making things up. Oh, how disrespectful. Mom, she's calling me a liar and being mean to me, my sister-in-law said as she walked into my mother-in-law's room. After that, my sister-in-law's mean behavior got worse. She claimed I told her to sleep in the hallway and take the last turn for a bath because she's just a guest. She complained to my mother-in-law about every little thing. Every time, I had to explain I hadn't said or done any of it. But my mother-in-law seemed to believe my sister-in-law and be influenced by her. My sister-in-law stayed longer, making me wonder if she planned to stay forever. With all these worries, I went home feeling sad. I'm back. Before, my mother-in-law would warmly say, "Welcome back," but now it was quiet. "I'll start making dinner," I said, stepping into the living room. I was surprised. Usually, my sister-in-law would rush me to make dinner, but now my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and sister-in-law were eating sushi together. Surprised, my sister-in-law said, "Oh, looks like someone who isn't really family is here. You were planning on having sushi, were you?" My mother-in-law kept eating without looking at me, watching TV. "If you wanted sushi, you should have told me. I came home right after shopping," I said. "Ha! No one said they wanted that," my sister-in-law replied, not even looking at me. "Hey, Mom, Dad, I went out with my friends during the day and got some delicious pudding. Let's eat together," my sister-in-law said, ignoring me. They all started eating the pudding. I was tired from work and didn't have the energy to argue, so I went to my room without eating. The next day, my sister-in-law said she was going out with friends and asked me to drive her to the station. I said no because it was a weekday and I had work. Even if we were going in the same direction, it was a different route, and she wanted to leave around noon. I couldn't do it. "Just take the day off. It's fine. Your cute little sis-in-law just wants a ride. She hasn't had a chance to relax since she got married, right? Can't you be a bit nicer to her now?" she said. With all due respect, didn't you go out with friends last night after getting a late call? It seems like you've been going out almost every day since you came home. I have work. Please take the bus or train. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were talking quietly, but I was done and left for work. However, that night, the event that made me decide to leave this house happened. I got delayed at work and came home after buying groceries, expecting to face some criticism. It was raining heavily when I left the office, and I got soaked just getting in and out of the car. I wondered what nasty surprise was waiting for me tonight. But when I got home, they were all eating takeout again, just like the day before. No hello, acting like they didn't see me. But I was used to it. I looked out into the courtyard from the hallway and saw something in the middle of the garden. Looking closer, I saw it was my stuff. My designer bag that I bought with my first paycheck, shoes that were a birthday gift from my husband, and even my work computer, all wet. I was shocked, and my sister-in-law said with a smirk, "Having the strangers' things in the house grossed me out, so I threw them out. Flaunting a designer bag like that, how arrogant of you." Neither of my in-laws said anything about her terrible behavior. "Why didn't you stop her? Have I done something to you? Do you really believe her lies about me bad-mouthing you and bullying her? Aren't you upset with her for what she did?" I asked. My mother-in-law avoided my eyes and stayed silent. "Why won't you say anything?" I asked again. "I can't talk to strangers. I can't be friendly with someone who's not family," my mother-in-law replied, not even looking at me. My sister-in-law grinned, waiting for me to respond. "Wait, where's my father-in-law? I've been the one supporting him during his time off. I've been the one handling finances in this house. I did it out of gratitude, but shouldn't he stand up for me now? Surely he'd be on my side." Hoping for his support, I looked at him, but he walked past me without a word and went into his room. That was it for me. "I see. I've had enough." "Oh, are you upset?" "I'm sorry. Honestly, I never liked you from the start. You know, being from an institution and all. Just don't regret leaving," my sister-in-law said. "As if I would. Good riddance," I replied. I packed my things and got ready to leave right away. Only my father-in-law seemed worried because he relied on me financially. But even he didn't try to stop me or speak up for me. I was done with his indifference. Although my husband's work assignment was far away, I just wanted to get out of that house as soon as possible. I quickly got into my car and drove to him. I never talked to my husband about any of this. I doubt my mother-in-law told him about my sister-in-law coming back home. If he knew, he would have reached out to me because he knows I don't get along with her. But my husband never mentioned anything about my sister-in-law in his calls or messages. I never doubted my husband's behavior before, but maybe she's manipulating him, feeding him lies about things. Even now, as I go to him, he might treat me the same way they did. My heart was heavy, feeling suspicious even toward my husband, whom I trust the most. If he's siding with them, maybe divorce is the only option. That's how distressed I felt. When I arrived at his out-of-state apartment, he hadn't returned yet, probably busy since it was the end of the month. As I waited, my husband came in energetically, maybe noticing the lights. "What? You're here? You should have told me you were coming. I would have come back sooner." "What a pleasant surprise." "No, just seeing your face," he said with a big smile. Seeing him happy to see me after all that happened at my in-laws' house, mixed with relief and humiliation, and I couldn't hold back my tears. "What's wrong? Did I do something?" "Seriously, what's going on?" he asked, concerned. It seemed my husband had no clue about the treatment I endured at his parents' house. I gathered myself, knowing I needed to explain everything clearly to him. I started recounting everything. How I've been financially helping his father who took medical leave without telling his wife. How his sister returned and was now staying at their parents' house. How she lied about me to his mother, turning her against me. How they treated me like an outsider, ignored me, and even ruined my belongings by leaving them out in the rain. Through tears and pauses, I poured out everything to him. Finally, I made it clear that I couldn't go back to that house ever again. And if he couldn't support me on this, I would want a divorce. My husband apologized for being too focused on work and not checking in on me more often. He regretted his family's behavior towards me. He assured me I didn't have to go back there or even talk to them again. Even if I forgave them someday, he was firm about cutting ties with his parents and sister. He also promised not to provide any more financial aid to his father. That night, I felt a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. The tension I'd been carrying melted away, and I slept peacefully by his side. After leaving my in-laws' house, I never went back. Commuting from my husband's out-of-state place wasn't practical, but I had already talked to my company about working remotely. My job didn't require me to be in the office all the time, and many of my colleagues worked from home too. Although I still had to visit the office a few times a month, some colleagues lived even farther away, so working remotely wasn't a problem. Living with my in-laws and dealing with my sister-in-law's bullying, I hadn't truly experienced married life. But now we could finally live like newlyweds. As I set up my remote workstation, as expected, my sister-in-law contacted me. It turned out that the day after I left their house was my father-in-law's payday. My mother-in-law usually takes out a certain amount and transfers it to their household account, but this time she couldn't. It was only then that she realized I had been helping them financially during my father-in-law's time off. "Hey, why didn't you tell me you were covering the living expenses?" He asked me not to, saying he didn't want you to know. so I kept it to myself. Anyway, we're running out of money for living expenses and there's no one to cook or do laundry. The place is a mess. As his wife, you need to come back and take care of these things and send money quickly. How heartless. I already told you, didn't I? I have no intention of going back to that house or being treated like your maid. Why should I help people who hate me, ruin my things, and treat me like this? Aren't you his wife? Without your help, we can't pay the bills or even shop. That's exactly why I'm saying it. I'm an outsider, so it's none of my business, right? I hung up, ignoring my sister-in-law's complaints. She and my mother-in-law kept bothering me with calls and messages, but I ignored all of them. Even after my husband returned from work, they kept calling persistently. When my husband finally answered, he told them firmly, I will forgive you for how you treated her, and I'm not sending her back to you. I'm not coming back either. I don't see you as my family anymore. Leave my wife alone, or you'll regret it. Considering my sister-in-law adored her brother and my mother-in-law heavily relied on him, they were probably shocked. A few days later, I got a call from my father-in-law. He said living with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law was getting too hard, and he begged me to continue the financial help. I'm grateful they accepted me when I married, despite growing up in an orphanage, but they didn't support me when I needed it, despite all the financial help I provided. I don't owe them anything. Why should I help those who joined others in ignoring me? I'll never assist you again. And with that, I ended the call. Later on, my persistent mother-in-law and sister-in-law shamelessly showed up at my workplace. Since I was already working remotely and had a bad feeling about them, I had informed my company about the situation. Security was alerted right away. They caused a scene, demanding that the company make me send money back home. When my husband heard about it, he said, report them to the police. My colleagues were supportive, saying, I can't believe you had to live with those people. Focus on your remote work with your husband. As for my in-laws, my father-in-law's health declined under the pressure from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and he eventually quit his job. My sister-in-law tried to return to her husband's family, but he refused to take her back. The town quickly learned about her drama at my workplace, causing an uproar at her in-law's place. The real reason for their fight was her affair, and this incident added to their problems, leading to an immediate decision to divorce. Left without a home, my in-laws and sister-in-law moved to a cheap apartment, managing with part-time jobs. As for my husband and me, we're finally enjoying peaceful days, feeling mentally and physically fulfilled. Recently, we found out we're expecting a child, and we couldn't be happier. We're eagerly awaiting the day we meet our baby, cherishing our time together. My name's Jennifer, and I'm 32 years old. I work in a busy city called New York, where people believe in working hard to succeed. My husband, Donnie, is 30 and works too. We got married 2 years ago. Donnie might seem a bit unreliable sometimes, but he's actually really kind. He's good at helping out with chores around the house. I'm a career-focused woman. I love my job and feel proud when I do well. In my job, if you work hard, you can move up. But there's a downside. Sometimes they might ask you to move to a different place. And if you want to have a baby, there's no rule about taking time off. Many women quit their jobs when they get married or have kids. I used to think the same way. I wanted to focus on my career and didn't plan on getting married. When Donnie asked me to marry him, I said no at first. I told him, I love my job. I'm in charge of a team now, but I want to go even higher. I can't imagine settling down or having kids. But Donnie understood. He promised we'd share the chores and wouldn't have kids. Eventually, I agreed to marry him because he was so understanding. Both Donnie and I work, so sometimes we don't split the chores exactly as we planned. But we help each other out, and I think we do pretty well. Sometimes my in-laws make annoying comments like, you should focus more on your home than your job, or, when are you having kids? But it's not too bothersome because Donnie always supports me. Living with Donnie has been nice, and I've learned to enjoy being married. Then, one day, my boss, who's the head of our department, called me about a possible move to a different office. He said, what do you think? You'd work at a branch office for a while, but you'd come back here after 2 years. You'd have a good position there, and if you do well, you'll get promoted when you come back. You might even become the first woman to lead a department. It's a pretty good opportunity, right? Accepting or refusing this move could decide if I'll get promoted at my job. Everyone who's become a boss or higher has done a move like this. If I say no, I might stay in my current job. But I could also get moved to a less important position. Before I got married, I would have taken this chance right away. But now, being married made me feel hesitant. I told my boss, "Thank you for thinking of me. Personally, I'm interested, but since it involves moving, I want to talk to my husband first. Can I give you an answer after that?" He said, "All right, you're married. You can choose to go alone or move with your family. Talk it over. I'm hoping for a yes." When I got home, I talked to Donnie about it. I can offer a job transfer. I might have to move to the countryside, but if I do well for 2 years, I can come back here. And if I keep doing well, I could get promoted. I want to take this offer if you're okay with it, Donnie. We can move together, or I can go alone. What do you think? At first, Donnie was surprised, but then he thought about it and said, "If you take this transfer, Jennifer, your dream could come true, right? I can't move with you because I have my job here, but don't worry about me. Go for it." With Donnie's support, I told the company I'd go for the transfer alone and started discussing the details. They agreed to pay for my moving costs and offered some good benefits, like considering my travel days as work days. So I decided to accept the transfer to the branch office. I got the official transfer order and chose to live in a company apartment, which was affordable. On moving day, the movers had already taken my stuff, and Donnie came to say goodbye at the station. "Thanks for seeing me off. I'll keep in touch and I'll try to come home as much as I can." "Yeah, I'll be waiting. But remember, even though you're working from afar, don't overdo it," Donnie said. "You too," I replied. "It's time. Take care, okay? I'm heading out," Donnie said as he left. And that's how my life as a remote worker began. I planned to come home during holidays and quieter times, but things got rocky at the branch office right after I arrived. "I won't take orders from a woman. How can I trust someone new like her?" one of the local employees complained. I faced resistance from the staff there. They spread rumors about me, didn't listen to my instructions, and even ignored my calls. And then things got worse when a project I was overseeing had a big mistake because one of my team members deliberately kept me out of the loop. The subordinate who was responsible looked really shocked, but as the boss, it was my job to handle it. I had to fix the problem, apologize, and not only get things back on track, but also mend relationships with my team. My boss saw how tough things were for me and gave me some advice. "I've been through a transfer too, so I get it. It might not seem fair, but you can't just push your way through. It's important to communicate well, understand others, and build relationships horizontally." So I followed my boss's advice. I spent more time getting to know everyone at the branch and even joined the neighborhood association since the company's housing was part of it. Before I knew it, I was so busy that I couldn't find time for myself, let alone go back home where my husband was waiting. I kept in touch with him, but after a few months of remote work, it got hard to reach him at night. I'm working late every day because work is tough. I get tired and end up falling asleep. As my husband made excuses and I got busier with work, I didn't suspect anything and focused more on my job. Once during a slow work period on a long holiday, I decided to go back home to New York on short notice. But I couldn't reach my husband by phone or text, so I returned from my remote work without telling him. When I opened the door to our home after a long time away, something felt strange. Then a woman I didn't recognize rushed to the door, saying, "Justin, welcome back. If I knew you were coming home early, I would have prepared." We both froze, staring at each other in shock. Finally, the woman spoke up, "Sorry, but who are you?" "And who are you?" "This is my house." "Wait, what?" "I live here." After arguing and getting nowhere, we decided to check the house number outside. To my surprise, it matched the custom nameplate I had ordered. The key works, and the nameplate's right. "This is my house. I'm going in," I insisted. "Wait, what?" "Stop." Ignoring her protests, I pushed past her and entered the house. Inside, everything had changed. The curtains, the furniture, all of it. There was a photo of my husband and the woman at a theme park, mugs I'd never seen before, and unfamiliar toothbrushes and skincare items in the bathroom. The bed linens were different, and the wardrobe held only the woman's clothes. My husband's stuff was hidden away in a back room. As I stood there in shock, I heard the front door open. "I'm home." "Oh, Lola, did you invite a friend over?" "Justin, thank goodness you're back. This woman just barged into our house." The man the woman called Justin was definitely my husband Donnie. Seeing me, he looked surprised. What are you doing here? Donnie, why is she calling you Justin? Can you explain what's happening? I asked him. What do you mean? This is Justin, right? Justin. Well, actually, my husband seemed flustered under our questioning. Lola, his real name is Donnie. Isn't that what's on your driver's license? And I'm Donnie's wife, Jennifer. That's not true. He told me he was divorced. Donnie, you need to explain everything clearly, I insisted. Jennifer, you were gone for so long, and I was lonely. So I thought I'd try a dating app, and that's where I met Lola, Donnie explained. So Justin is your fake name on the dating app? I questioned. No, it's not like that. I was worried if my real name came out. It might cause problems, so I used a different first name but kept my last name, Donnie clarified. And why did you lie about being divorced? I pressed further. Lola's profile said she'd never dated a man before and was serious about finding someone for marriage. It struck a chord with me, so I lied about being divorced to win her over. We started living together, Donnie admitted. Why would you do something like that? I asked, puzzled. At that moment, my husband began justifying his actions defiantly. It's because you're always away for work. It's natural for a man to want companionship. We've been living separate lives because of your job and the long hours. I just wanted a warm home where my wife would be there with dinner when I got back. I was shocked to hear this, as I always thought my husband understood and supported my career, but that doesn't excuse what you did. What you did was wrong. If you wanted to be with someone else, you should have ended our marriage first. Why didn't you do the right thing? I cared about both of you. I never wanted to leave either of you. After everything you've done, I was bound to find out when I came back. It's unbelievable that you thought you could deceive me like this. Well, it's your fault for not keeping your promise and coming back. If you had, I wouldn't have even thought about cheating. What on earth? I've told you how hard work has been, and you still did this. I yelled, feeling a mix of anger and hurt. Our argument escalated into a shouting match, with the woman my husband cheated with standing there, looking stunned. She realized she'd been tricked by a married man into his mess. So everything was a lie. You played me for a fool. I'm leaving right now, she exclaimed. Lola, wait, it's not what you think, my husband pleaded, but it was too late. My husband tried to stop the other woman from leaving, but she brushed him off, repulsed. Don't touch me with your filthy hands. I can't believe a single word you say. She cursed before storming out, packing her things and leaving for her parents' house. Furious with my husband, I decided to take action against his betrayal. Gathering evidence, I brought it back with me when I returned to work. The first thing I did was hire a detective to look into my husband's mistress. The investigation revealed that she was the daughter of an executive at a company partnered with my husband's workplace. I had a lawyer send proof of the affair to both my husband's home and the other woman's parents. When my husband received the documents, he protested, saying he didn't want a divorce. So I prepared for a tough legal battle, even considering going to court. The other woman's family contacted my lawyer, and we arranged to meet at their office. They apologized to me, and the other woman admitted her wrongdoing. We're truly sorry. Our daughter caused you so much trouble, and we didn't even know about it. She's always been very sheltered and naive about the world. We've been trying to arrange a marriage for her, but she wanted a more free-spirited love. She met your husband without our knowledge and got carried away without knowing who he really was. She thought she found a divorced man on a dating app and wanted to move in with him. We told her to stop seeing him, but she didn't listen. She was so caught up in her fantasies that she ran away from home to be with him. Our daughter was shocked to find out she was the other woman and blames herself. She's getting therapy now. We're willing to pay you $50,000 as a settlement and hope you'll keep this matter private. The other woman and her parents shook my hand firmly. I understand your apology, but I have one condition. I'm preparing for a divorce, but my husband won't agree. If you're willing to cooperate and provide testimony if this goes to trial, then I'll accept the settlement. Okay, we'll cooperate, but we don't want our daughter to have a permanent record of this. Is there any other way we can help punish him? Well, it just so happens that his workplace is our client. In an unexpected turn of events, the woman my husband cheated with and I teamed up. We planned to give him a taste of his own medicine. His workplace was about to face a crisis because he had upset an executive at one of their client companies. And guess who would take the fall? Only my husband. Meanwhile, Back at home, his parents were trying to reach out to him, unaware of the chaos. Jennifer isn't answering our calls, and she won't call back either. Is she so caught up in work that she forgot about us? When is she coming back? We miss seeing our grandchild, his mother said. Mom, you don't get it. I cheated on Jennifer while she was away, and now it looks like we're headed for divorce, my husband confessed. His mother replied, that woman who puts work before her husband is to blame. Maybe it's better if you end things with Jennifer and get back together with the woman you cheated with. My in-laws seem to think that the other woman's family had more money than ours, so they sided with my husband and his lover, attacking me relentlessly. They called me repeatedly, but I blocked their calls. Then they started calling me at work. When I refused to talk to them, they showed up at my workplace, causing a scene. Let go of our son. It's because of you being such a career-focused woman that our son cheated. He'd be happier with his lover, so stop interfering, they demanded. What are you even saying? I want to divorce Donnie. He's the one refusing. Plus, the woman he cheated with doesn't want him back. He tricked the daughter of a big-shot executive into dating him, and they're furious. It's going to be a big mess, I explained. Once they realized their son had angered an important client, my in-laws suddenly changed sides and tried to be nice to me. We had no idea it was this serious. We must have misunderstood. We're sorry. Our son messed up, but he feels bad. You'll forgive him, right, Jennifer? They pleaded. I have to decline. You just insulted me, and now you're asking for forgiveness? Please leave, I told them firmly. When they refused to leave, I had security escort them out. Because of the scene they caused, my company decided to sue them for disrupting business. After all the drama, I finally got the compensation from my husband and got the divorce. The other woman's family also demanded compensation for their daughter's suffering and therapy costs. With the loss of his job and having to pay hefty settlements, my husband was now in deep debt. He couldn't afford to quit, and he was trapped. 2 years had passed since my assignment started. When everything settled down, I finished my assignment successfully and was getting ready to go back to the main office. My hard work paid off, and I got promoted to department manager. If I hadn't taken the assignment, I might still be stuck in a loveless marriage. But I realize now that a man like him would have cheated sooner or later, and I would have clashed with his parents anyway. I've learned that I'm better suited for work than family life, and I'm incredibly fulfilled and happy now.
I am Emily, aged 35, and for the past decade, I've devoted my life to homemaking. My partner in this journey was Michael, a doctor. Despite our lack of children, we found contentment in our shared existence. However, the tranquility was shattered one day when Michael arrived home late, delivering a proclamation that would mark the end of our 10-year marriage. It's over for us, Emily, he declared. Bewildered, I questioned him about the sudden revelation. Michael, habitually returning late, dropped a bombshell. He had decided to marry his mistress, and divorce was imminent. Shocked, I exclaimed, "Marry your mistress? What are you talking about?" Michael asserted his decision, emphasizing that our union lacked the foundation of love. Our marriage was orchestrated by his parents, who deemed me a suitable match. We tied the knot hastily, knowing little about each other beyond sharing a common last name. People might call it fate that we shared the same surname, and in the whirlwind of surrounding marriages, I succumbed to the notion marrying him. Our union, though not built on love, endured for a decade. Little did I anticipate that Michael would abruptly opt for a divorce. I confronted him about the betrayal, demanding to know when he started betraying me. Michael insisted it wasn't betrayal, revealing that he met his mistress, a nurse in our hospital, a year ago. Enthralled by her charm and caring nature, he was drawn to her. The revelation left me incredulous. Despite our marriage's lack of love, I never imagined Michael's callous desire to marry another woman. He demeaned our shared history, expressing disdain for my role as a homemaker. His words cut deep, stating that he found me boring and that living with me for 10 years was hell. I agreed to the divorce, shocked at his callousness. We discussed the legalities later, but Michael dropped another bombshell. He never submitted our marriage registration. We were not legally married. We were merely cohabitants. His elaborate scheme, formed during our initial agreement, ensure that he maintained control over all official matters. As the reality sank in, I realized that the life I thought I had built was nothing more than an illusion. Michael had strategically kept our marriage unregistered to secure financial control. The 10 years we spent together seemed like a cruel joke, orchestrated by someone I thought I knew. I was meant to be with you, and you should have rejected the marriage proposal from the beginning. But I couldn't. My parents are stubborn and wouldn't listen. If I had refused, I wondered what would have happened. Besides, I needed a housekeeper. As a busy doctor, I couldn't handle household chores. So I decided to marry you for practical reasons, as a housekeeper. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement. You had a good place to live and meals without the burden of work. It seemed like a fair deal, especially since you appeared eager to get married, perhaps influenced by societal expectations. This 10-year relationship was a win-win situation for both of us, or so I thought. But it ends today. You should appreciate the good times we had, but now you have to live on your own without depending on others. And one more thing, don't inform my parents about our situation. If you do anything unnecessary, you know what will happen to your father. He has a contract with the hospital where he works, thanks to our marriage. I'm implying that I could sever that connection as a threat. In other words, I'm warning you not to take any actions I would find undesirable. He laughed, claiming it was my fault for being deceived, leaving me with nothing. However, unbeknownst to him, the one who would be left with nothing was him. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. "What's so funny all of a sudden?" he asked, puzzled. "I can't believe you became a doctor with that kind of knowledge," I retorted. Confused, he questioned, "What do you mean?" I had known about his mistress and the fact that he didn't submit our marriage registration all along. In fact, I had suspected his infidelity for the past 6 months, but lacked evidence to confront him. I had hired a private investigator to look into his affair. The investigator revealed 2 crucial pieces of information. First, there was evidence of my husband entering a hotel with a nurse from his workplace. Second, based on their conversations, there was a possibility that we were not legally married. "What does that mean?" I asked in disbelief. He explained, "I overheard your husband and his mistress at a cafe. They mentioned not needing to worry about alimony or property division because they never submitted a marriage registration." I couldn't believe it. We had been living as a married couple for 10 years, and the revelation that we might not be legally married was shocking. It explained why he never allowed me to handle any official procedures. This is too much. Am I just supposed to accept this? If we were never married from the start, there's nothing. I trailed off, grappling with the reality of our situation. "I can do more than you think," I asserted. Confused, my friend asked, "What do you mean?" I suggested, "Let's make him pay for deceiving you for 10 years. First, we need to prepare without him noticing." So, I initiated preparations with the investigator to hold my husband accountable. He had arrogantly claimed, "So what if you knew we were never married from the start? I don't need to take any responsibility." Mocking my supposed pitiful ignorance, he believed he was in the clear. However, I turned the tables on him. "You said I was pitiful for not knowing anything, but it seems you were the one who was pitiful," I retorted. I revealed a legal loophole. Our relationship, though never formally married, was considered a common law relationship on paper. I explained, in a common law relationship, you can actually claim alimony and divide property. Confused, he questioned, "What are these conditions?" I clarified. First, both parties must have the intention to marry. The second is living as if married, including sharing household life for over 3 years. We meet these criteria. I continued, "Even if you can claim alimony and property division, you're just an unemployed woman, planning to rely on your parents after being kicked out." With a smirk, I assured him, "Didn't I say I was preparing? I've already found a job starting next month, and I've got my eye on a new place." Defeated, he stammered, "But even if you can claim alimony and property division, do you not care what happens to your father if they want to break the contract?" Unfazed, I replied, "Let's see if they'll break a contract just because the doctor's wife of 10 years was a lie. Try saying that to my father and see if we won't be affected." As I took out my phone to inform my parents of the impending end to our relationship, he panicked. "You're not calling your parents, are you?" I calmly stated, "That's exactly what I'm doing. Our parents think we're still married. It's only natural to inform them if this relationship is ending." Surprisingly, he began to apologize to me, realizing the tables had turned. "Please, let me talk to them. Don't call," he pleaded urgently. I raised an eyebrow, frustrated. "Why? You know how strict my parents are. If they find out about this, I'm done." I retorted, "What does that have to do with me? Are you asking me not to tell the truth because your parents are strict? Are you kidding? You could have refused the marriage from the start if you didn't intend to marry. After 10 years of a selfish marriage, you're afraid of your parents finding out. I can't accept such a convenient story. But I can't accept your story either. I'll make sure to tell both your parents and mine," I declared, and without hesitation, I called both sets of parents. All four were shocked upon hearing my story, leading to a prompt arrangement of a meeting at our house. "I've heard everything over the phone. Is it true that you pretended to be married for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration? Speak up, you foolish son," his father scolded. His response was a sheepish admission, "It's true. I didn't submit it." His mother intervened. "Why would you do such a thing? Didn't you think about how Emily would feel?" I had no choice, he defended himself. "No choice, you say? How can you even say that? It's actually your fault, Dad and Mom. I didn't want to get married yet. You started looking for a bride on your own, saying it was time I got married. You arranged meetings and tried to force a marriage on me. You're the one who agreed to the marriage, aren't you?" I had to agree. If I had refused, you would have made a fuss about it. "So I decided to get married," he explained, pointing the blame back at his parents. His father questioned, "If you were resolved to marry, why didn't you submit the marriage registration?" He cited an internet story. I read about a man in the same situation. He didn't want to marry but had to because of his parents. He lived a married life without submitting the registration and revealed the truth when he found someone he truly loved. That's appalling. What happened to that guy in the end? I asked. He's now married to the person he loves and has a real marriage. So, I too will marry my girlfriend and have a real marriage, he declared confidently. Then my parents spoke up. "A real marriage, huh? Sure, you might not have had a love marriage, but do you remember what you said at the wedding? We will never forget to care for each other and build a home full of smiles." What did those words mean to you? What were we shown? We sent our daughter to you hoping for her happiness, but you deceived her for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration. Did you build a home full of smiles? Now you're leaving her for another woman. Can someone who acts without a shred of care, even if they change partners, truly have a real marriage? He stammered, attempting to respond, but my father cut him off. "I was happy you married our daughter, not just because you were a doctor. I thought she could build a happy home with someone as sincere as you, but it seems we were mistaken and deceived. And you threatened our daughter. If she told us about this, you'd cut off the contract with our company." Seriously. If you're going to threaten our daughter, we'll cut off the contract ourselves. Be warned. We will tell the truth when asked. Why? If you do that, there will be rumors at the hospital, my father warned. His face paled at the unexpected turn of events, and he pleaded, "Please wait. This is getting out of hand. Let's just talk." But my father-in-law, furious, wasn't having it. "Don't mess with us," he declared, grabbing my husband by the collar. "We didn't raise you to be such a scoundrel. What were you thinking? Father, please stop. By not submitting the marriage registration, you might have thought you were doing yourself a favor, but because of your selfish actions, Emily was strung along for 10 years. I interjected, my voice firm. What were you thinking, causing such trouble to others? The living room fell silent as my father-in-law confronted my husband with these stern words. Faced with the weight of those accusations, my husband had nothing more to say. I spoke up, addressing my in-laws. Emily and your parents, I'm truly sorry for the trouble caused by this idiot. No, you parents shouldn't apologize. It's not your fault. However, it's partly our responsibility as parents for letting him act this way. For now, we'll take him home and make sure he doesn't continue his reckless behavior. We'll deal with the aftermath properly. We're very sorry for all this, my father-in-law admitted. With that, my husband was taken away by his parents, back to his childhood home. You've been through a lot. For now, you should come back home and rest. We'll think about what to do next later. You don't need to worry about anything right now, my parents assured me, expressing their concern. Thank you, but I won't go back home yet. I still have things I need to do. I declined their offer and chose to stay in my own home. What I had to do was prepare for the final settlement with my now ex-husband, gathering evidence for our common law relationship. I was getting ready to claim alimony and divide our assets. A few weeks later, a meeting with a lawyer was arranged. However, even if I agreed to alimony, my ex-husband couldn't accept the idea of dividing his property. Why should I divide my property? She's been a homemaker for 10 years, never working a day. All the furniture, clothes, food. I paid for everything. Now you're telling me to hand over the money I worked hard for? The furniture I bought? He ranted, unable to accept that his money would be shared with me. The lawyer explained, yes, that's correct. The money you earned and the furniture are subject to property division. Why does it have to be like that? Who did the housework while you were working? Who cooked meals with the groceries you bought? He argued. That's irrelevant now. No, it's very relevant. A homemaker is entitled to property division because housework and childcare have economic value. Speaking as a human, not just a lawyer, do you think housework is something anyone can do? That it's just expected of a homemaker? The reason you could live freely is because of her support. Don't get that wrong, the lawyer asserted. He was taken aback, and in frustration, he said, and this situation is a result of your actions, yet you have the audacity to be selfish. The lawyer responded, what do you say? Never mind. Anyway, she's entitled to half of the assets for property division. That's how it is. Regarding alimony, we intend to claim $100,000 from you, the lawyer continued. $100,000? Why so much for a relationship that wasn't even a marriage? He protested. It's precisely because you weren't married. Normally, alimony claims in common law relationships range from $10,000 to $40,000. However, in your case, you pretended to be married for 10 years and selfishly tried to kick her out when you found someone else. The amount is determined by the severity and duration of your actions. But still, you may think 10 years is just a short time, but it's longer than you realize. During that time, she devoted herself to you, believing you were a married couple. You have no right to complain after betraying her, the lawyer explained, presenting a strong case. Unable to counter this argument, he reluctantly agreed to my demands. I also sent a notice of claim for alimony to his mistress, thanks to the investigator who revealed her identity. As he had said, she was a nurse working at the same hospital. In a panic after being served with the alimony claim from me, she confronted him at the hospital with the notice I had sent. Wait a minute. This isn't what you told me. What do you want? I told you not to talk to me at the hospital. I got this from your wife. You said there wouldn't be any alimony because we weren't married. What's this all about? She questioned him. I later learned that their confrontation at the hospital had sparked quite a scene. Okay. Let's talk about this later, not here. There are too many people around. We'll both be in trouble if this turns into a rumor. He tried to defuse the situation. I don't care about that. I can't pay this kind of alimony. You said it was okay, so you should pay it for me. What? I won't pay a penny. You were the one who wanted this relationship. You said I was the only one for you, that you wanted to marry me. Hey, quiet down. Everyone can hear us. Just so you know, I'm not in the wrong here. If you want to make amends with your wife, do it yourself. Tell her I don't owe her a penny, that you'll take care of everything. Wait, hold on. This exchange led to the revelation of their affair to the entire hospital. It quickly became the talk of the place. Then, the final blow was my father's request to the hospital. I apologize, but we would like to terminate our contract at the end of next month. The hospital, aware of the rumors, asked my father, "Excuse me for asking, but is the reason for canceling the contract related to Dr. Michael's affair?" It's already become a rumor. Yes, a nurse presumed to be involved caused quite a scene. I never imagined he had been pretending to be married for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration. I never expected it to turn out like this. You mean he never submitted the registration? Weren't you aware that he hadn't submitted the marriage registration? All we knew was that he, being married, had an affair. What do you mean he didn't submit the marriage registration? With my father's request, it was revealed that he had been deceiving me for 10 years by not submitting the marriage registration. This news spread among the other nurses. Dr. Michael deceived his wife for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration, and he had an affair with a nurse. How low? How could he do that? Can someone really not notice for 10 years? Apparently, Emily's maiden name was the same, and he managed all the official paperwork. That's scary. The rumors spread not only among hospital staff, but also to patients, and both Michael and his mistress received cold stares. Unable to endure, they soon resigned from the hospital. As my father told me, "Did you manage to get the alimony?" Yes, I received payments from both him and his mistress. She refused to pay until the end, claiming she was deceived. But the lawyer made it clear her argument wouldn't hold, and she reluctantly agreed to pay. That's good. What about you, Dad? Did the contract get canceled after all? No, that's off the table. He resigned, and since our company is trusted, the hospital asked us not to cancel the contract. We couldn't cancel it after they asked like that. That's a relief. Then I started a new life in a new place and was living happily. About a year and a half later, my ex-husband contacted me. "Is it true you got remarried?" I had married a man I met at work, and somehow he had found out. I wondered whose number this was, going through the trouble of changing your number just to contact me. Just answer my question. Yes, I got married. You betrayed me. Betray. We were never legally married, so I didn't think it would matter to you, right? That's a different matter. Indeed, things are different now. We're completely separated, so my marriage has nothing to do with you. Is that why you contacted me? After I said this, he seemed at a loss for words. Then he taunted. Of course, you're still unmarried, since you probably haven't submitted a marriage registration again. You're that kind of woman. But things weren't as he imagined. Unfortunately for him, my husband isn't the kind of person to do such terrible things. He knows all about your story. So to ensure I wouldn't feel anxious, we went to the office together to submit the registration. Sadly for you, things aren't as you thought. I can somewhat understand your wish for me to be unhappy, considering your own misery. But sorry, we're happily married. I told him this and hung up the phone. What kind of life he leads now, I don't know. But unless he changes his selfish nature, it's unlikely he'll ever find happiness.
My name is Lisa, and I'm 37 years old. I live with my husband Larry. We both work for the company that Larry's dad started. Even though Larry's dad has retired, he turned a small construction business into a company that makes $300 billion a year. He bought other construction companies, and even though he could be tough, everyone respects his business skills. Larry was groomed to take over after his dad. He grew up in a privileged way and is very kind-hearted. I worry that he might struggle in the competitive business world because he can be hesitant and unsure. Larry himself admits, "I don't think I'm cut out to lead. I might just end up as a figurehead if I try." He doesn't seem eager to take charge of the company. We've been married for 10 years and lately I'm frustrated with Larry's lack of drive. Unlike him, I see myself as someone who makes decisions easily. During his active years, my father-in-law appreciated this about me and gave me important tasks to handle. Before I married Larry, I worked at a bank, so I'm used to handling finances and always thinking about numbers. After we got married, I quit my job at the bank and planned to focus on being a full-time homemaker.
But then my father-in-law asked me to work for his construction company instead. Soon after I started, he began inviting me to join board meetings and asked for my input on how things were managed. Initially, some board members were unsure about having the founder's daughter-in-law involved in important meetings. However, as I consistently offered valuable insights, they started to take my suggestions seriously. Despite Larry also being on the board, he rarely attended meetings, and everyone, including my father-in-law, saw this as normal. One day when I returned from a meeting, I found Larry casually watching TV. "Why didn't you come to today's meeting?" I asked, feeling angry. "You're an important member, you should take it seriously." He didn't seem guilty at all when he replied, "Even if I did go, I don't really understand what they discuss. Besides, everyone prefers your input, so it's not a problem, right?" I couldn't help but wonder if he was upset about me being involved in the meetings, despite his nonchalant remarks. My father-in-law has been teaching me all the ins and outs of running the business and seems to be preparing me to take over. I started to enjoy being part of the management, and soon enough, I was working hard to meet my father-in-law's expectations. About 3 years after I started attending meetings, my father-in-law retired completely. When important decisions needed to be made, the board members would come to me for advice, sidelining Larry. I had hoped that this would motivate Larry to get more involved, but instead he became even more disconnected from his work. Despite coming to the office in the morning, Larry would vanish by noon and spend the rest of the day at home. When he saw me there, he avoided talking about work altogether, seeming uninterested in the company's affairs. Meanwhile, my responsibilities at the company kept growing. After my father-in-law retired, the board members relied on me increasingly, and I started handling duties similar to those of a CEO. Our company is large with many employees, so I worked hard to boost sales and profits for their sake. Thanks to the efforts of our employees, our sales started to rise. I found running the company more and more intriguing, and I became deeply involved in my work. In contrast, Larry seemed to lose interest in his job, and his presence at the company became less frequent. Our conversations at home dwindled, and our relationship started to feel strained. "I met your sister Nancy today, and we had lunch together," Larry told me when he came home. Nancy, who's 3 years older than me, just went through a divorce about 4 months ago. It happened because she cheated, and things got really heated when her angry husband showed up at our parents' house. I was caught up with work, so Larry stepped in to calm down Nancy's husband. Despite the tense situation, Larry's gentle nature and calm personality managed to persuade him to leave peacefully. Nancy later told me, "Your husband is really something. He handled my furious husband so effortlessly." She was impressed by Larry's ability to diffuse the situation. Nancy was able to finalize her divorce after paying alimony. Since then, she seemed to see Larry in a new light. Before, she might have viewed him as a wealthy, sheltered son who wasn't particularly remarkable. But after seeing how he handled her husband's anger, she began to see him as a capable and respectable business owner. Nancy, who was now single after her divorce, might have seen Larry as a desirable catch because she always liked wealthy men. But I was so focused on my work that I couldn't even imagine such a thing. Little did Nancy know, Larry was just a figurehead at the company and didn't actually run it. Nancy's ex-husband had been an impressive employee at a foreign company. He had boasted to me at their wedding, saying, "I have a high salary and good looks. You must be jealous." He was indeed handsome, intelligent, and carried a sophisticated charm. I couldn't fathom why Nancy would cheat on such a wonderful husband. 5 months after Larry mentioned having lunch with Nancy, I came home one day to find Larry looking unusually serious. "Lisa, we need to talk," he said. It was the first time he had spoken to me like that, and I felt a sinking feeling in my chest as I waited for him to continue. "Actually, Nancy is pregnant with my child, and I want a divorce," he told me. I was shocked by both the request for a divorce and the news of Nancy's pregnancy. Stunned and speechless, I listened as Larry added, "Nancy plans to come over on our next date off to discuss this. I hope I can count on your support." I was shocked. "So you want to marry my sister?" I asked Larry. He looked troubled and replied, "It's not that I want to marry her, but if she's pregnant with my baby, I feel like I have no choice." Larry's usual indecisiveness frustrated me, and I sighed, "Well, if she's carrying your child, I guess we have to deal with it. Let's talk more when she comes over." Feeling like Larry and I couldn't make decisions together, I decided to meet with my sister directly to sort things out. Even though I had already made up my mind about getting a divorce, I felt I needed to talk to my father-in-law about the situation with the company. As someone involved in running the business as the founder's daughter-in-law, divorcing would make me feel like an outsider. The next day, I went to my in-law's house and shared exactly what Larry had told me with my father-in-law. My mother-in-law was initially excited about the prospect of having a grandchild, but she quieted down quickly when my father-in-law gave her a stern look. It seemed she cared more about the grandchild than the company's management. After thinking it over, my father-in-law smiled and said, "Lisa, I want you to continue managing the company as you have been. Larry can do as he pleases. I'll handle the responsibility. It was clear that my father-in-law valued the company's management more than anything else, including his son or the prospect of a grandchild. Even though he had retired as the company's founder with the majority of shares, his influence was significant. There were no executives who would defy his wishes. I had grown attached to my work and was reluctant to step away from it. With my job secured, it was time to discuss the future with my sister. On my day off, she arrived at my house with a confident smile and said, "Lisa, it's a shame you couldn't have a child." She then arrogantly offered me money as compensation and demanded that I leave the house immediately. My husband sat there silently, listening to our conversation despite being the cause of the problem. I was dismayed by his indifferent demeanor and responded, "It's fine to discuss divorce, but we also need to address custody and property division. Let's bring in a lawyer to handle this properly." "I never imagined you, my own sister, would end up with someone like Larry," I replied to my sister with a touch of sarcasm. She glared at me briefly but then composed herself. "I've come to realize it's not just about appearances or status, it's about who someone is on the inside," she said earnestly. I couldn't help but stifle a laugh at her sudden wisdom about my husband's character. Holding back my amusement, I said, "That's wonderful to hear. I hope you and Larry find happiness together." It seemed my sister believed Larry was more than he actually was, perhaps even the president of our father-in-law's company. It was clear she hadn't heard the truth from him. After our discussion, my sister decided to move in and arranged for movers. Knowing how impulsive she could be, I had already organized a new apartment with just the essentials. I also hired a lawyer to prepare documents for dividing our property and determining alimony. The next day, after moving my belongings out, I began negotiations for alimony and dividing property with my husband and sister, alongside my lawyer. My husband remained passive, showing little emotion, while my sister did all the talking. "As I mentioned earlier, I'm willing to pay whatever alimony you ask for, so please take your time to decide," she said. Upon hearing this, my lawyer decided to pursue alimony from my sister as well as my husband. My sister is already making alimony payments to her ex-husband. I had been informed beforehand that it might be challenging to claim alimony from her. However, since she offered to pay whatever I wanted, I decided to proceed with the claim. During the property division negotiations, my sister eagerly pointed out, "This mansion originally belongs to Larry's family, so it shouldn't be included in the division of property, right?" Remaining calm, the lawyer responded, "This building and the land are owned by the company, so it's ultimately up to the company to decide." It seemed even my husband thought this house belonged to his father. "Is that so?" "I thought this house was Dad's," he casually remarked. On the other hand, my sister was surprised and turned to the lawyer, asking, "Wait, does that mean I can't live in this house?" The lawyer replied professionally, "Since it's owned by the company, you can continue living here if the company agrees." Relieved, my sister exclaimed, "Oh, you should have said that earlier. It's fine because Larry, the president, will still be here." This statement caught the lawyer off guard, who burst into laughter. "What are you talking about?" "Lisa is the president, not Larry," he clarified, looking at my sister, who planned to marry my husband without knowing this crucial detail. She immediately turned to Larry and exclaimed, "Larry, you're not the president." Seeing his discomfort, I stepped in and explained to my sister, "Larry is an advisor without executive authority. I, on the other hand, am both an executive director and the president. Our father-in-law, who founded the company, was always the president. When he retired, he appointed me to these roles based on my performance, and there was no opposition from other executives. On the other hand, my husband was receiving an executive salary as an advisor, thanks to his father's arrangement, despite not having any executive responsibilities. It was more of a symbolic title than an actual role, and the salary was lower than what a regular employee would earn. This meant I was shouldering all our living expenses. Larry showed little interest in our household finances and didn't even know whether our home was owned by the company or his father. Although it was company property, my responsible father-in-law had always charged us rent. I had seen it as a standard rental arrangement, but the lawyer, still chuckling, asked, "Can we continue renting this house to Larry?" My sister was quick to react to the rent question. "Rent? Why would we charge Larry rent? It's company property, just let him live here for free." The lawyer then presented the rent amount, which startled both my sister and Larry, who seemed surprised to hear about it for the first time. "Looks like the rent for such a big house is pretty steep. I can't afford that on my salary," Larry remarked, realizing the financial strain it would pose with his modest executive compensation. Over our 6 years of marriage, Larry had exhausted most of his earnings. My own salary had also been swallowed up by high rent and living costs, leaving us with few assets to divide, mainly savings. After the lawyer left, my sister, now aware that the mansion she coveted was rented, appeared crestfallen and stared blankly. Meanwhile, Larry wore his usual grin. I suggested, "Why don't you move back to your parents' house? Your mom was thrilled about the pregnancy." Larry agreed, but inwardly I couldn't help but find the situation ironic, having to consider arrangements for a man who would soon be my ex-husband. I started to worry about whether he could responsibly raise a child, but I quickly dismissed these thoughts as irrelevant. Turning to my sister, who seemed to have forgotten about her own alimony situation, I asked, "Are you okay with the alimony arrangement, sis? You seemed confident earlier, but you're also paying your ex-husband, right?" Her expression shifted abruptly as she processed my question, snapping back to reality. "Alimony? I have to pay that too?" my sister exclaimed, clearly shocked and seemingly unaware of our earlier discussion. "You said you pay plenty of alimony earlier, but you didn't expect to pay it yourself, did you?" "My salary is really low," she continued, sounding incredulous. Larry and my sister exchanged surprised glances, and I couldn't help but feel like laughing at the situation. I had already finalized the divorce papers and alimony requests, so personally, it didn't affect me anymore. But watching Larry and my sister's reactions was almost comical. My ex-husband, who had remarried my sister and moved back to his parents' home as I had suggested, found himself caught in constant arguments between my sister and our in-laws. The root cause of these conflicts stemmed from the lie about my sister being pregnant with his child. His mother, hoping for a grandchild, was furious upon discovering the truth. Meanwhile, my father-in-law, who had never approved of my sister taking his son away from me, refused to even speak to her. He covered Larry's alimony payment in full, ensuring it was settled. Witnessing my sister's plea to our father-in-law, "Dad, could you please pay my alimony too?" was met with his stern response, "I have no reason to be called Dad by you," he retorted angrily. Disheartened and unable to achieve what she had hoped for, my sister left my ex-husband's family home abruptly, without saying a word, and disappeared. It seemed she had remarried my ex-husband solely to bear the burden of alimony, a decision that now seemed painfully naive. My ex-husband appeared to reconsider reconnecting with me, but his father rebuked him. "You're not the kind of man who should even think about starting a family. You can't even take care of yourself properly." Watching all of this unfold, I couldn't help but reflect on how we had reached this point. When Larry agreed to move back to his parents' house, I knew it was the right decision. While his mother was overjoyed at the prospect of a grandchild, I couldn't shake the feeling that Larry was simply not ready for the responsibilities of parenthood. His lack of engagement during our marriage persisted, and I doubted it would ever change. Seeing my sister's shock when she realized she had to pay alimony was almost amusing. She had been so confident earlier, but it was evident she hadn't fully considered the consequences. With her finances already strained, adding more payments would only worsen her situation. I couldn't help but wonder how she could be so naive. The negotiations for alimony and dividing our property proceeded smoothly thanks to my lawyer's meticulous approach. Everything was handled fairly and transparently. In contrast, Larry and my sister appeared bewildered and overwhelmed by the process. Their exchanged glances of surprise and confusion indicated they hadn't fully grasped the gravity of their circumstances. Moving out of the house marked a significant new chapter for me. I had already secured a new apartment and was ready to start afresh. Although I had once considered the house my home, leaving it behind felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. Since it was company property, parting with it also symbolized letting go of the final ties to my life with Larry. After I moved out, tensions between my sister and my in-laws escalated. The deception about her being pregnant with my ex-husband's child caused an irreparable rift. My father-in-law, who had never approved of my sister, openly expressed his disdain. He saw her as the cause of disruption in our family, and this latest lie validated his concerns. When my sister asked my father-in-law to pay her alimony, he coldly rejected her plea. "I have no reason to be called Dad by you," he snapped, clearly furious. Her hopes for a comfortable life supported by my ex-husband's family shattered, leaving her without the expected support. In the end, my sister fled from my ex-husband's family home without a word, abandoning the turmoil she had stirred. Her plan to remarry my ex-husband and secure financial stability had disastrously backfired. Instead of finding security, she had only multiplied the problems for herself and those around her. My ex-husband, realizing the chaos he was caught up in, seemed to consider reconciling with me. However, his father, always the voice of reason, rebuked him harshly, saying, "You're not the kind of man who should even consider starting a family. You can't even take care of yourself properly." Ultimately, I moved on from the entire ordeal. I focused on my career and building a new life, leaving behind the turmoil that had engulfed my marriage. It was evident that Larry and my sister had their own paths to navigate, and I chose to detach myself from their complicated lives. The experience taught me valuable lessons about trust, responsibility, and the importance of making decisions based on personal integrity. I resolved never to reconcile with my ex-husband, even if he begged me. His betrayal with my sister and his indifferent demeanor had shattered any remaining faith I had in him. During our discussions, he lost his executive position and now works as a temporary employee. His behavior throughout our marriage and after the affair made it clear he wasn't reliable or trustworthy. His lack of commitment to our relationship and the company showed he wasn't suited for the responsibilities he had. Seeing him reduced to a temporary employee only reaffirms my decision to move forward without him. Being CEO has become the most important aspect of my life. It gives me purpose and fulfillment, keeping me focused and motivated. I take pride in improving the company for our employees and their families. Being CEO is now central to my identity, and I can't imagine giving it up. I'm not considering remarrying after our breakup. Starting a new relationship isn't something I'm interested in right now. I've been through too much emotional turmoil to even consider starting a new relationship. Right now, my focus is on myself and advancing my career. There are many goals I want to achieve, and I'm determined not to let anything distract me. I've kept in touch with my father-in-law, and he's been a great source of support and wisdom throughout everything. His advice has been invaluable whenever I face tough decisions or need guidance. My commitment to the company feels like a marriage in itself. For the sake of my employees, I dedicate myself fully to its success. This means hard work, dedication, and a passion to ensure our business thrives. I'm committed to providing job security and a stable future for our team, and their well-being is a top priority for me as CEO. This journey has taught me resilience and staying true to myself despite personal challenges. I've steered the company through steady growth and maintained a positive impact on our employees' lives, which motivates me every day. Ultimately, my focus remains on leading the company and supporting my team. I'm driven to create a successful future for all of us. While my personal life has had its challenges, my professional life gives me stability and a deep sense of accomplishment. This is where I draw my strength and where I choose to direct my energy moving forward.
A funeral dress with a skirt that's too revealing makes me angry. It seems like you're trying to attract men by wearing it. I'm tired of my husband's unfair thoughts. I want a divorce. I'm leaving this house. My name is Kate, and I'm 40 years old. I love chocolate a lot and often end up eating a whole family-sized bar by myself without realizing it. I used to fight with my sister over chocolate when we were younger. Looking back, I wasn't always a mature big sister, but I've seen adults who act even less mature than I did when I was 25. Back then, I had just married my husband, Kevin, who worked at a bank. We met through a friend and got married after about 6 months of dating. Everyone thought I had a perfect life. But things changed after we got married. Every day, when Kevin came home from work, I would greet him and ask about dinner. If it wasn't ready, he'd get upset. So, I made sure to come home before him, cook dinner, and clean up. It was a bit annoying, but Kevin's good salary allowed us to live in a nice house and have a comfortable life. I thought it was normal to have little arguments in a marriage, so I didn't pay much attention to it. But Kevin's behavior kept getting worse. Despite being married, I still visited my parents often, especially to see my 14-year-old sister who was much younger than me. Since our parents worked a lot, I felt like I raised her most of the time. It wasn't because my parents ignored her, but because I loved her so much and wanted to take care of her. My sister was often sick and had to stay in the hospital. Sometimes the doctors would say she might not make it through the night. Thinking about losing her made me love her even more. That's why even after I got married, I continued to visit my sister when she was out of school. But my husband didn't like it. He would say things like, "Who is more important, me or your sister?" When a woman gets married, she should focus on her husband's family. My mother never acted like this. "You're not doing your duty as a wife." He'd go on like this for almost an hour. None of my friends were married at the time, so when I talked to a senior coworker about my husband, she said, "It's your responsibility. When you're married, you have to prioritize your husband." I thought that's how it was supposed to be. Looking back, I realized I was naive. But even then, I couldn't imagine not seeing my sister. My sister's health was getting worse, and she was in the hospital again, only allowed short visits in a sterile room. It's natural for a family to want to be together in times like these. Sometimes, I'd even take a day off from work to go see her, and I started going to the hospital even on days when my husband was off. But my husband strongly disagreed with this. One day, out of the blue, he invited his mother, my mother-in-law, over to our house. With her there, he confronted me. "What are you even thinking? I work hard to take care of our home, and you can't even do that properly. You're just hopeless. I've told you so many times not to wear skirts, yet you still do. It's inappropriate for a married woman to wear a skirt. What's the problem with me wearing the clothes I like? And this dress was chosen by my sister. I can't just give up on it." See, there you go again, always bringing up your sister Kate. You should be caring more about me. After all, who do you think supports you? Hey, I work too. You can't just claim you're the only one providing. This argument isn't getting us anywhere. Listen, I've already called your workplace and told them you're quitting. You should be thankful. From now on, your focus will be on taking care of the house. What are you talking about? You can't make decisions like this without asking me first. I'm not going to listen to you. Starting today, you're going to live with my mom. Maybe then you'll learn how to be a proper wife. I don't understand what's gotten into you. You're acting irrationally. Shut up. The angry husband smashed a glass on the floor and continued to throw things around in his rage. Seeing the broken glass made me truly scared of my husband for the first time. I regretted marrying him, wondering how I ended up with someone like him. Later, I tried to cancel my resignation with my company, but they told me not to cause any trouble. It turned out my husband had demanded my resignation in a way that was almost abusive, so I lost my job and had to stay at home as my husband wanted. When I told him I quit my job as he wished, he apologized with a smile, saying he might have gone too far. But after seeing his true nature, I couldn't trust his apology. The next day, my husband surprised me by bringing home a group of his coworkers. He proudly introduced me, saying, "I wanted to show off my lovely wife." And his colleagues joined in, praising my appearance. Then, out of the blue, he declared, "My wife is an amazing cook. You have to taste her food before you leave." I panicked, realizing we didn't have enough food for everyone. "It's fine, just make something simple." "I don't want you to stress out," he reassured me. "I can go shopping if we need more ingredients," one of his female coworkers offered. "Your husband really cares about you. I'm jealous," he added. "No, he's just good at putting on a show. If he really cared, he wouldn't have brought his coworkers home after a big fight yesterday." I thought bitterly to myself as I started cooking with my mother-in-law. After about 3 hours of eating and drinking, his coworkers finally left. "Hi, you." "What?" I instinctively replied, feeling nervous about what might happen next, given his grumpy mood. I was anxious, afraid he might explode like the day before. "Can't you be a bit happier? Seems like I'm not teaching my wife properly," he criticized. I couldn't understand what I did wrong, but I didn't dare to argue. I was too scared. "I'm sorry," I mumbled, feeling defeated. "Even a child can apologize," he scoffed. "Mom, give her a score for today." He turned to his mother for backup. "Well, she's not doing a good job supporting her husband, is she?" "I can't give her any score," his mother replied. "Haha, see, even my mom agrees. She can't even give you a score. How funny is that?" My husband laughed and lightly tapped me. "And about the meal, I tasted a bit. But didn't Kevin find it unsatisfactory?" he continued. "That's right, Mom. Keep it coming. And what about her clothes?" "There were men among the colleagues, but she's showing too much skin. What do you think?" "As a woman, it's indecent to expose your collarbone. She should cover it with a scarf or turtleneck," he added. Whose fault is it that his colleagues suddenly invaded our house and I had to cook without even having time to change my clothes? I retorted. "It's Kevin's," I concluded. I couldn't understand why I was constantly being criticized so harshly. She really is something, isn't she? Despite my efforts to teach her every day, she just doesn't seem to learn. "Maybe she's just not very smart," my husband remarked. "No doubt about it," his mother agreed. That day, I endured a lecture for nearly 2 hours. By the time I finally got a chance to take a bath and go to sleep, it was almost 4 a.m. I had to wake up soon to prepare my husband's lunchbox, so I decided to skip sleep altogether. Despite everything, my husband continued to try to teach me a lesson, especially when I kept visiting my younger sister. About a month and a half later, I received the heartbreaking news of my sister's passing. "I wished it was a lie," I murmured, desperately hoping that my mother's announcement of my sister's passing was just a cruel joke. I had been warned countless times about my sister's critical condition, and I had even shared what I thought would be my last moments with her. I thought I was prepared, but my heart couldn't accept the reality. She was only 14 years old. I questioned whether my sister, who endured painful treatments and constant hospital stays, had truly found happiness in her life. As her older sister, I had been able to bring her joy. However, the last expression I saw on her face in the hospital was a smile. It seemed she hadn't suffered. "You fought bravely and you did your best. Thank you for everything," I whispered through tears as I hugged my sister and bid her a final farewell. The funeral passed in a blur. and I realized I hadn't been home for several days. I informed my husband about my sister's passing, but as expected, he didn't bother to attend the funeral. Instead, he said something hurtful like, "You should prioritize me over the dead." Unable to bear such cruel words at such a time of grief, I ignored him and hung up the phone. When I finally returned home, weighed down by sorrow, my husband and mother-in-law were waiting for me at the door, looking stern and unwelcoming. "You're quite late, aren't you?" my husband remarked. "A family member has passed away. I couldn't just come back in a few hours. How can you accuse me of lying so easily?" I replied, feeling hurt and frustrated. "What? Are you going through a rebellious phase? Always lying and defying me. Whose wife do you think you are?" he retorted. "Wait a minute, my sister really did die. It's not a lie," I insisted. I wonder. Even though you haven't greeted me at the door in days, even if you're wearing a skirted suit now, it's hard to believe you," he replied dismissively. "Why is it hard to believe?" I asked, confused and upset. "If you truly love your husband, you should be able to do it. It's your duty as a wife to welcome your husband home." My husband scolded me, accusing me of being incompetent, "And don't even think about denying it. Are you having an affair?" "What? No matter how many times I tell you," he dressed provocatively, "and the other day you were flirting with my colleague. You're just interested in other men, aren't you? What a disgraceful woman," he continued, hurling hurtful accusations at me. "What the heck?" I started to argue back, fueled by anger and forgetting my fear of my husband. But then it happened. "Divorce, huh? Fine by me. Someone as frivolous as Kate isn't fit for Kevin, right?" my mother-in-law chimed in. My husband mumbled, trying to stop her, but I seized the opportunity. "I agree with Mom. Let's get a divorce," I declared firmly. My husband kept pleading with me to reconsider, but I had made up my mind. I couldn't risk staying with him any longer, afraid that his violence might escalate. This was my chance, and I was certain it was the right time to end our marriage. So I quickly packed my things and left the house. My husband kept insisting, "If you apologize, I'll forgive you." But I ignored him, thinking he must be delusional. He persisted until the end, grabbing my arm tightly and saying, "Wait." But I reacted instinctively, hitting him in the face with my bag and running away. I headed straight for a specific place, a room in an apartment that I had prepared just in case something like this happened. As soon as I entered the room, I received a call from my mother-in-law on my cell phone. "Hello. Kate, did you arrive safely?" she asked concernedly. "Yes, I'm fine. I'm in a taxi, so Kevin won't find out," I reassured her. "That's good. Make sure to hire a lawyer and proceed with the divorce quickly," she advised. "Yes, I can't wait to start living independently," I replied. In reality, my mother-in-law and I had been pretending to be at odds in front of my husband. It all began the day my husband brought a colleague home. After his lecture ended and my husband fell asleep, my mother-in-law approached me. "Leave this house. Get away from my son," she urged me. Each time my husband criticized me, my mother-in-law, who seemed to have her suspicions, would ask, "Really?" It turned out her late husband had been very much like my husband, and she had endured a lot in her own marriage. In her generation, divorce was frowned upon, so she couldn't end her own marriage. But it seems she wanted something better for me. Watching the interactions between my husband and me, she must have felt compelled to help me. That's when my mother-in-law, with the help of a friend, found a safe place for me to live alone. It's hard to believe she's related to my husband. I can't thank her enough for her kindness. After living in the apartment she arranged for me for 2 weeks, my mother-in-law finally visited, pulling along a suitcase. "Welcome. I'm looking forward to this new chapter," she greeted me warmly. Living with us, my mother-in-law discovered that her own son had changed. Before, he seemed like a good person, the image he presented to his colleagues. My mother-in-law blamed herself, believing that his behavior was influenced by his father's genes or things he witnessed during his childhood. For me, regardless of the reasons behind his behavior, I believe the real issue lies in his inability as an adult to control his emotions. So, I don't hold my mother-in-law responsible. My husband now takes good care of my mother-in-law, but only because he thinks she's on his side. I fear what he might do if he discovers she's been helping me with the divorce. That's why I suggested she come live with me for a while when she prepared this house. At first, she hesitated, Wording that once my husband and I divorce, she'd become a stranger to me. But I assured her, saying, "After everything you've done for me, there's no daughter-in-law distinction. You're like my mother or my sister. That's how I see you." On the way back from my sister's funeral, my mother-in-law steered the conversation toward divorce, intentionally supporting me. Recognizing her intentions, I quickly agreed to the divorce. I thought it would take more time and preparation to leave my husband, but thanks to my mother-in-law's help, that time came sooner than expected. I have nothing but gratitude for her. Finally, the divorce was officially settled through the lawyer. 4 days later, as I returned to the apartment, I was startled to find my ex-husband waiting for me outside. "I found you. You're trying to trick me," he accused loudly. Does he know about what happened? I wondered silently, trying to remain composed. "What do you want now?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "It's your fault that the credit card and bank account balances have decreased," he blamed me. "What are you talking about?" "I don't understand," I replied, feigning innocence. In truth, before the divorce, I was using my husband's credit card to gradually buy furniture for this house. I also quietly withdrew money from the bank account. It was all part of my plan, I confessed. When I discussed this with my mother-in-law, she encouraged me to go ahead with it, so I emptied the account without any hesitation. The reason why my unemployed mother-in-law and I can live comfortably, enjoying tea parties every night, is because of this money. That's my money. "You can't just do whatever you want without facing the consequences," he shouted angrily. "Remember the money we have? It's from the credit card we got after we got married and the money we saved together. Since we're married, it's both of ours," I explained, smiling at him. Suddenly, my mother-in-law returns from shopping and says, "Oh, you found out, didn't you?" Surprised, my ex-husband stands speechless behind me. "Hey, you're back," I greet my mother-in-law, trying to keep things normal. "What? Why is Mom here?" my husband asks, confused. "Well, because we're living together," I respond, with my husband still puzzled and my mother-in-law acting like it's no big deal. "So, you lied about going back to your parents' house, and why are you living with Kate, not me?" he questions. "I'm lost," Kevin admits. "Well, I've lost hope in you, Kevin," his mother replies. "What? But I'm the one who helped Kate get away," Kevin protests. "Actually, Kevin, Kate and I had already planned to split up before you even knew about it," his mother reveals. "But Mom, you were saying terrible things about Kate." "Yes, well, when I was criticizing her, I was really imagining you in her place," his mother confesses. "What do you mean?" Kevin asks, confused. "Because you're not the sharpest tool in the shed, and you get all worked up over silly things like a woman showing her collarbone. I was worried Kate would be in trouble. She deserved someone better than you for a husband," Kevin's mother bluntly tells him. Kevin is taken aback by his mother's harsh words. Meanwhile, I find her response so unexpectedly funny that I burst into laughter. "Mom, you do realize I'm your son, don't you?" Kevin asks, trying to make sense of it. "Unfortunately, yes." "I guess I should have raised you differently," his mother responds dryly. I can't help it, and my laughter grows even louder. "You're just a chit off the old block, like your dad. Watching you mistreat Kate reminded me of my own past. I worried that if she left you, you'd come crawling back to me. I couldn't take that chance, so I left you and moved in with Kate, for both our sakes," Kevin's mother explains. Kevin's mother's confession brings tears to his eyes. He finally explodes, "Is it my fault? Why? You're my child. You've been neglecting me." His mother laughs, almost incredulously. "Do I still need to mother a grown man who's almost 30, she scoffs. A few neighbors gathered as our argument escalated in the yard. They chuckled at my ex-husband's dramatic outburst, saying, "He's really making a scene." With people watching, he didn't dare lay a hand on us and retreated to his house. But the next day, he seemed to have completely lost it. He started spreading rumors about us to his friends and co-workers who used to hang out at our place. "My ex may seem nice, but she ignores her husband," he complained to anyone who would listen. One woman at his office fired back, "You know, your behavior is exactly why women are wary of their husbands. It's becoming a societal problem." Although no one openly agreed, the vibe at work made it clear that Kevin was in the wrong, and he felt increasingly isolated. In the end, my ex-husband, who turned out to be quite sensitive, couldn't handle the judgmental stares and whispers anymore. He quickly quit his job. It's ironic how he was so quick to criticize me but couldn't handle criticism himself. How sad. Feeling alone, he sent me a lengthy letter trying to justify his behavior and boasting about his greatness as a man. The letter was a whopping 10 pages long. I was surprised when I received the thick envelope. I had blocked his texts, but if he could write this much by hand, I can only imagine how many texts he would have sent. His final line was, "If you ever miss me, feel free to contact me." So I playfully replied, "Then please go ahead with the property division." That sparked another big argument. I used to be afraid when we lived together, but not anymore. I stood my ground with my lawyer. Even before his mother suggested I leave, I had secretly been recording his behavior at home, preparing for a divorce. All those months enduring his hurtful words paid off. With the evidence, I successfully sorted out the property division. After that, I moved out from living with my ex-mother-in-law when I found a new job. It was still close enough for a reasonable commute. Surprisingly, she had found herself a boyfriend. It turned out the person who introduced us to the apartment was her new beau. She left with him, holding hands, and said, "Come visit us once we're settled." I must admit, my ex-mother-in-law really surprised me. She's a fantastic woman, and it's clear why she's so well liked, regardless of her age. As for me, I spent my best years focused on work after changing careers, thinking I might have missed my chance for remarriage. However, I started joining regular online gatherings with my colleagues. This gave me more opportunities to casually exchange contact info with people I didn't usually talk to, including a director from another department who showed interest in me. At first, I kept my distance because we worked for the same company. But as we began having private online chats about things we couldn't discuss at work, we grew closer and eventually started dating. The head of the department, who hadn't been in a relationship for years since his last girlfriend left him because of his workaholic tendencies, treated me with caution, saying, "I don't want to repeat the same mistake." And happily, we decided to tie the knot next year. I was concerned that his parents might not approve of me, considering I've been divorced before and he's getting married for the first time. However, I'm relieved to see his parents are accepting and even grateful, saying, "Thank you for being with our son." When I shared the news of my upcoming marriage with my ex-mother-in-law, she was genuinely happy for me. Oh, and about my ex-husband, it seems he found a job at a different bank and got remarried. But knowing his personality, it's likely he's been divorced again. That makes it 3 divorces now. He works at a bank and initially comes off as charming, but he tends to blame his ex-wives for the divorces, which makes it seem like women fall for him. Even when my ex-mother-in-law tries to warn women about his true nature at wedding receptions, he manages to manipulate them skillfully. Well, after 3 divorces, it's likely he'll start being avoided by women. I just hope there won't be any more victims. With the way he's going, he probably won't have a good ending because he's likely disliked by many women. But honestly, it's not my concern anymore.
Hello, my name is Macy. I'm 42 years old and have been married twice. My second marriage has been wonderful, but my first was a disaster. My first husband's name is Bobby, and we were high school sweethearts. I was a cheerleader and he was a jock. We had a lot of fun together, and he made me happy back then. He was my first boyfriend, so I did everything for him because I thought he was the one I'd be with forever. We planned to go to the same university so we could stay together, but in my second year, when I was 19, I got pregnant. My family was upset, and I wasn't thrilled either. My mom kept telling me that life with Bobby wouldn't be easy. My family never liked him but couldn't really explain why. They just had a bad feeling about him. As a teenager, I wanted to prove them wrong and rebel, so I ignored their concerns. Both our families agreed to support us until we graduated and got good jobs, and I'm still very thankful for that. Bobby and I got married at the courthouse and had our first child. At first, Bobby was a great father, and I felt like I was proving everyone wrong. Then 2 years later, I got pregnant again. By then, I had graduated from college, but I had to quit my job to take care of the kids. Bobby worked 2 jobs to support us. Life was hard, but at that time, I felt that as long as I had Bobby with me, I could handle anything. But a couple of months after our second child was born, Bobby started acting very differently. I tried to talk to him about it, but he wouldn't listen. One day, I took the kids out for a walk and came back to an empty apartment. All of Bobby's things were gone. I panicked, and seeing me panic made the kids cry. I tried calling him several times, but it went straight to voicemail. I remember rushing to my mother's house with the kids crying while I tried not to break down. When my mother opened the door, she looked worried and let us in. "What happened?" she asked. "I think Bobby left me," I said. "What? What do you mean?" "I took the kids for a walk, and when we got back, all his stuff was gone. I can't reach him." "Oh no, do you know why he might have left?" "I don't know. He'd been acting very differently for a while. But he wouldn't talk to me. And then today, he just left." "Okay, calm down. We'll wait a while, and if he doesn't come back, we'll file for divorce. I'll help you out." But I loved him. How could he do this to his children? "I know. I wish I could find him for you and ask him all these questions, but we have to move on. Not because he'll heal you, but because you have 2 kids to raise." My mom was right. I spent the next few months painfully getting over him while raising 2 kids who looked a lot like him. I cried myself to sleep many nights, but eventually, months turned into years, and I slowly got over the pain. My kids obviously asked questions about their father, and when they were old enough, I told them the truth. They were devastated but surprisingly understanding. As a family, we learned to live past the pain. My mom was a huge help and made raising 2 kids much easier than it would have been alone. 13 years after Bobby left, I met my current husband, Fred, at a bar during one of my friend's birthday parties. My mom was watching the kids, so I thought it was a good time to relax and have some fun with my friends. Most of the night, I stayed with my friends, chatting and laughing. Towards the end of the night, Fred approached me. My friends had been encouraging me to meet someone for years, but I was too traumatized by Bobby to try. So when Fred came up to me, my friends stepped back to watch as I talked to him. He started by asking if he could buy me a drink. I wasn't going to turn down a free drink, so I said yes. We waited until we got our drinks to start talking. "So what brings you here?" he asked. "Ah, it's my friend's birthday, and I'm just here to celebrate with her," I replied. "That's nice. How about I send over some drinks for all of them?" he offered. "All of them? There are 7 more people there." "It's all right. I'll make up all the money I spent here the next 2 hours, so no worries." "So you're rich? Ha, I guess you could say that. Of course, I'm not trying to brag or anything. No, it's a great thing to flaunt. Not a lot of people get to do that, and you aren't being a jerk about it. You're buying a bunch of strangers drinks because I told you it was one of their birthdays. What can I say? I have a particular weakness for pretty women. You're so weak you believe everything they say, even lies." "Yes, of course. Although did you lie?" he asked with a playful smile. "No, it is one of their birthdays. But it is concerning that pretty women make you weak. You should get that checked," I joked. "How about you help me with it? Maybe if I had a pretty woman by my side, I'd only have a weakness for one woman," Fred replied with a playful smile. It was a confidence boost to be called pretty by Fred, especially because he was so handsome. He looked like he could be on the cover of Vogue. I surprised myself by flirting back with him. I was usually quite introverted, so I don't know if it was the drink or just Fred's charm, but I felt comfortable being flirty. Eventually, my friends came to get me, thanking Fred for the drinks. Before I left, Fred and I exchanged numbers. From then on, we talked all the time. We started with texts, then moved on to calls whenever we had free time or something interesting to share. We also started meeting up more often. At first, we met in public places, but as time passed, we began hanging out at each other's homes. I was shocked when I saw Fred's house for the first time. It was like a mansion. Fred laughed and told me to get used to his wealth because it would soon be mine. Fred was very open about wanting to marry me. He told me countless times how comfortable he felt around me, and that just made me love him more. He was also completely okay with me having kids. When I told him about Bobby, he was genuinely upset for me. After that, he went above and beyond to show me how much he cared about me. Fred and Bobby were like night and day, and being with Fred made me realize why so many people didn't want me to be with Bobby. I was glad I got out of that relationship, but I hated how it ended. Fred helped me heal and move on from it, which I was incredibly grateful for. We only dated for a year before getting married. We had a destination wedding and flew out our closest friends and family. My kids were thrilled for me and constantly told me how much they loved Fred, which was a huge relief for me. Life from then on was smooth sailing. Fred eased all my worries and even helped with my kids' education, despite me insisting I could handle it. He showed me that he accepted all of us, not just me. He decorated my kids' rooms exactly how they wanted them before we even moved in together. Fred did everything Bobby didn't and more. It was a true turning point for my family, and that's how we grew into what we are today. From then on, Fred and I had a child of our own, but he never treated my kids differently. About a year after our marriage, my kids asked him to legally adopt them, which was another big moment for our family. After that, we became one big family. We did all the things families do, going out to eat, going on vacations, having fun together, you name it. My career was going well, and Fred's company was thriving too. There wasn't a single thing wrong in my life. Before I knew it, 7 years had gone by. Then, one day, out of the blue, I got a call from an unknown number. "Hello," I answered. "Look who it is. It's Macy." "Who is this? Don't you recognize me?" "Ah, I don't think you remember much anyway. It's Bobby here." "How are you doing?" the voice said. "Bobby? What the heck? How did you even get my number?" I asked, surprised. "Ah, I forgot how whiny you are. I just happened to come across your number and thought I'd give you a call to see how you've been," Bobby replied. "How has life been treating you since?" he asked. "Since you left me? Oh, come on, Macy. We were having way too much trouble, and both you and I know that we would have gotten divorced anyway. So you just chose to leave without saying a word." "Well, I wanted to avoid all the emotional drama, so I did what I had to do," Bobby said. "You are unbelievable. A pretty rich piece of work. Do you even realize the harm you caused me? Leaving was the best thing that ever happened to me." "Are you serious right now?" "Yes. I married a wealthy woman with kids, but I was willing to overlook it because of her money. And it paid off because she got me this amazing job that pays me so much. I'm living my dream." "So you abandoned your own kids to take care of someone else's. You gotta do what you gotta do, right? Please never call me again. Goodbye." I was stunned by the sheer audacity of that man to call me just to brag about his new rich lifestyle. Part of me wanted to keep talking to him just to find out where he was, so I could give him a piece of my mind. But I was so overwhelmed with emotions that I could barely think straight. After I hung up on him, I felt hurt, not for myself, but for my kids. They grew up without a father who was too busy taking care of his new wife's children. We struggled, but what did he expect? We were just high school graduates when we had our first child. Where would we have gotten the money for ourselves? At the same time, I felt disgusted. He was the epitome of a sleazebag. He only cared about someone if they had something to offer him. I decided to block his number because I didn't want to deal with him anymore. That chapter of my life had been closed for long enough, and I never wanted it reopened. I told Fred about it later that night, and he was understandably upset but also glad that I blocked Bobby's number. We decided to move forward from that. About a week later, I received another call from an unknown number, and once again, it was Bobby. I was getting frustrated by his constant calls. He called to brag about his luxurious lifestyle, his new expensive car, and how well his kids were doing at school. I didn't bother being polite this time. I just hung up on him. But that didn't stop him. He kept calling every week after that, telling me about his extravagant purchases. I blocked him with every new number he used, but he kept finding ways to reach me. Eventually, I stopped answering his calls altogether because he was becoming a nuisance. It seemed like he enjoyed bothering me. One day, when I was stressed at work, Bobby called me again. "Oh, hey, Macy," he said. "Can't you just leave me alone?" I snapped. "Oh, come on. I'm just trying to make up for lost time," he replied casually. "Well, you're 20 years too late. The kids don't care about you, and neither do I. Leave me alone," I said firmly. "You know you love it, Macy," he replied. "I really don't. I don't want to hear anything about you or your new good life." "Why? Are you jealous? Are you jealous I'm living the life that you'll never be able to live?" he taunted. "I can assure you I'm not." "Well, here's something that will definitely make you jealous. I just got a promotion. I don't give a crap." "You know you're jealous. I just got a promotion at Digitum, one of the finest media companies." "I'm going to hang up," I said, ending the call. I was furious and annoyed after the call, but something Bobby said kept nagging at me. I was too angry to think about it at the moment, so I pushed it aside. When I got back home, I couldn't shake the feeling, and then it hit me. Bobby mentioned working for Digitum. one of the top media companies in our city, and it struck a chord because Fred is the CEO and founder of that company, my husband. I couldn't believe how perfectly the universe had aligned. This meant I finally had a way to teach Bobby a lesson, not just for bothering me, but also for abandoning his children. I waited eagerly for Fred to come home, bubbling with excitement to tell him about my day. Did something happen? Why do you seem so hyper? Fred asked when he saw me. Nothing happened per se, but I did find out something big, I said, unable to contain myself. Oh, what is it? He asked, intrigued. Bobby called again. That sick guy. If I could get my hands on him. Fred started, his anger evident. That's the thing, he might be closer than we thought. I interrupted. Huh? What do you mean? Well, today he called me to brag about his big promotion at work, and guess where he works? I said, a grin spreading across my face. You mean to tell me that he works at my company? Fred exclaimed, disbelief evident in his voice. Yeah. At first, I couldn't help but think his company name sounded really familiar, and then it hit me. I explained. Did you really not remember the company I created? Fred teased. Listen, I was way too angry to remember my own name. Cut me some slack, I joked back. I'm kidding. Anyways, do you want me to fire him? Fred asked. Absolutely. But before you do, I was wondering if there was any way to humiliate him, I said. Definitely. Bold of you to think that I wasn't going to fire him in the worst way possible for him, Fred chuckled. With that, we began planning our revenge. We decided to wait a few more weeks before executing our plan to fire him. We would record his calls to me and play them in front of everyone at a big company event in 2 months, which Bobby would be in charge of. There would be several big names present, and we would tarnish his reputation. Over the next few weeks, I answered Bobby's calls calmly, knowing I had the upper hand. I listened to him boast about his wealth and my lack of it, all while recording every conversation. These recordings would come back to haunt him, and I couldn't wait. At the end of the 2 months, the event arrived. Normally, I avoided big crowds, but this time, I wanted to see Bobby's downfall while I sat on the throne. Fred bought me a stunning expensive dress for the occasion. I stayed in the car until Fred called me, not wanting Bobby to see me and run. I entered when Fred introduced me during his speech. As I walked on stage, Bobby's face dropped. I smirked as I passed him, watching him sweat. Fred praised me and spoke about our wonderful years together, raising my kids. With every word of praise, Bobby seemed to sweat more. I beamed with pride as the crowd applauded me. Then Fred's speech took a surprising turn. He spoke about how I had been harassed by my ex-husband recently, detailing how he had abandoned me and our kids to start a new family with someone wealthy. But fate had a twist in store because my ex-husband worked for Fred's company. The crowd murmured in shock, speculating about who my ex could be. Fred quieted them down, promising to reveal the identity. He pointed at Bobby, declaring him to be my ex-husband. The crowd buzzed with disbelief. Bobby looked like he might faint, realizing there was no way out. Fred wasn't finished, he had proof. He played the recordings of Bobby's calls to me, exposing his behavior. Bobby froze as the truth unfolded. Fred announced that due to Bobby's actions, he was fired. The crowd cheered as Fred and I left the stage. Bobby was escorted out, and the event continued smoothly. Revenge was served, and it tasted sweeter than anything else. You're quite bold to call me again after last night. I answered the unknown caller. You tricked me, the voice on the other end exclaimed. What do you mean? I asked innocently. You absolute witch. Don't play dumb with me. How could you not tell me that you were married again, and to my boss no less? As I've told you before, Bobby, I simply didn't care about you, I replied calmly. I know that, but the least you could have done was inform me, he retorted. So you would only stop harassing me if you knew who my husband was? And if my husband wasn't your boss, you would have continued. I countered. Don't twist my words. Bobby protested. I'm not twisting anything. And if we're talking about decency, Bobby, let's talk about you abandoning your family. If you could do that, I can certainly do this. Enjoy your new life, and I hope you find a new job, I said firmly. I don't have a family anymore. My wife left me because of yesterday, and she took the kids. And it's all because of you. Bobby lamented. I didn't do anything. You did this to yourself. Goodbye, Bobby, and good luck, I replied, ending the call. It felt empowering to finally stand up to Bobby and know that I had caused him to lose everything. I hope he learns never to mess with me or my family again. Fred and I continue to thrive together, and our kids have grown into wonderful adults. My life is peaceful once again, and I no longer stress about Bobby's calls. I finally feel vindicated and free. Thank you for listening to my story.